Okay, good morning, committee. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It is currently 9 a.m. I'd like to confirm that we do have quorum. The following councillors have sent their regrets: Councillor McIntyre and Councillor Edwards. So they will not be in attendance today's meeting. I'd like to confirm that we have our CAO, clerk, and members of the senior management team and staff here and present today, and continue to advise the public that if you have any feedback on our agenda, to please to send this to the following email address: tmlpubliccomment@muskokalakes.ca. Today, there is no comments received. Reminder that today's meeting is being live streamed and recorded on the Township of Muskoka website and YouTube channel. By participating in the open public meeting today, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded and posted online. And just for those of us who are joining us here in the room today, just a reminder that we operate in a hybrid setting, so there will be members of committee as well as members that are delegating or staff members that participate online. At this point, there was no supplementary agenda, and I would like to ask if there's any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Okay, Councillor Burry.
Item 10B, the Muskoka Community Lakes, the flow-through fund is being done with the Community Foundation, and I'm a director of the Community Foundation, so okay. I have a potential conflict.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nishikawa?
Same.
Okay.
Only I'm not in that. I'm just a secretary.
You're not just a secretary. Thank you. Councillor Roberts?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to excuse myself from item 8A, report LS-2025-018, license agreement with POTS. I have a close community relationship with the POTS.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Kelly?
Thank you, and through you, I will be recusing from item 7A, the arena feasibility study, because I own real estate that is immediately adjacent to the arena property.
Okay.
Fort Carling.
Are there any other disclosures? Okay, seeing none. Last comment, that the motions have been pre-populated with random movers and seconders to expedite the meeting, and that voting, members shall physically raise your hand until the chair has confirmed this vote. If the vote is unclear, a verbal vote shall be recorded by the clerk, but this is not considered a recorded vote. So with that, we do have a robust, I would say, agenda today. So I would like to move right into our delegations and invite to the podium item 5A, our hospice. Welcome, Ms. Kearney. You have 5 minutes, and thank you for coming today.
Thank you. My purpose would be to share plans for innovation and partnership and growth over the next over the next several years. Next slide, please. So really wanted to, first of all, thank you on behalf of the Board of Directors and the staff of Hospice Muskoka. Thank you to Council. Thank you to the businesses in Port Carling and area who have supported the people who come to hospice to visit their loved ones. So we have had almost 800 people at this point live and die at Andy's house. Those people bring about 5 visitors each on average. That's a lot of people coming to this community to be served by this community. So we are so grateful for your embracing hospice, for embracing Andy's house the way you do and the way you have. And so thank you so much. I have a special call out to the fire chief and fire services. We have utilized their services several times this winter due to the snow conditions. And without those services, our residents would have had no heat over the Family Day weekend. So thank you so much for always being there when we need you. We are grateful and so appreciative. Next slide, please. you can see on this slide, the first side is how many people were served from each community before Andy's house was open. And you can see that most of our population served was in Bracebridge and Gravenhurst. Since Andy's house opened in 2020, we now serve almost 20% of our population from the Muskoka Lakes region. So 20% of the people who didn't have access to palliative care now have access. And that's a huge bonus for this community. We hope to grow that number through expanding our services out into the community, and I'll get into that in a second. So please, next slide. Basic operating model. The highlights here are that we, over the past 2 years, have operated 10 beds because of a collaboration with MAC. Those beds were occupied 95% of the time, and we were successful in reducing the palliative ALC by 88% through that partnership. Next slide, please. That partnership is ending. It's currently on a month-to-month basis until, so MAC is developing a new partnership with another organization based in Gravenhurst. Hospice Muskoka is working with MAC and the District of Muskoka to get the 3 remaining beds funded. And we've had a Minister of Health meeting yesterday, and it looks like that funding may be granted. So we're hopeful that that happens. And when it is announced, I will make that official. So hoping that we're moving in the right direction. In the meantime, we are hoping to partner with the district and hospital to be able to open those 3 beds on a longer term basis. Next slide, please. So Andy's House at Home is a new program that we're launching this year. What it does is it allows people who can die at home to die at home with the same level of care that Andy's House provides. And what that allows us to do is preserve the 10 beds at Andy's House for people who don't have a home to die in, for people who don't have a caregiver to support them at home, and for people who are so complex at the end of life that they need 24/7 care. So 10 beds will never be enough to serve the population we serve. So we need to provide our services in the community at home whenever possible. So this program, we've asked for funding from the ministry. We don't yet have it, but we're launching anyways. We are very, very fortunate to have donor support and community support, which allows us to open that program. Next slide, please. Grief and bereavement services are growing very, very rapidly in our community. We have currently 1 social worker. We've applied for funding for a 2nd social worker. Grief and bereavement services, particularly in the school system, we're finding children are grieving, losing grandparents, losing parents, losing siblings. Over 50% of our population are under the age of 70 at Andy's House. So this is a new demographic for us. We're finding younger and younger people are dying. Our young people are suffering. They don't have anyone to help them through the grief and bereavement. So we've got a contract with Trillium Lakelands. We're going into the schools. We're teaching the children how to cope and how to survive through the grief and you know, get over the unhealthy grief so that they can move forward in a healthy way. Next slide, please. We are looking to open a future satellite site in Bracebridge and in Gravenhurst, and those sites will offer grief and bereavement caregiver support and other programs and services that will help to keep people at home and out of the emergency room. Thank you so much for your attention and for the opportunity to address you this morning.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Committee, we've probably all had a chance to look at the presentation. Do we have any questions or comments? Okay, Councillor Roberts and then Councillor Bosenworth.
Thank you very much, Karen, for you to Karen. You mentioned the great support you're getting from fire services during that significant weather event. But how else or what can the township help Hospice Muskoka?
Thank you.
So what I hear often from the visitors who come to Port Carling is they need places to eat. They need places that are open 24/7. They need places that are open year round. And that's been a problem. So up until this point, we've been using Bala Meals on Wheels to support their food needs because we don't have full access. So really developing more restaurant opportunities in Port Carling would help. It would take that cost off of our budget line. So that would be a great place to start. Also, we've been very fortunate with lodging, and people who own accommodation facilities have offered that at a reduced rate for families of people who are dying. Also for staff in weather events, we've had people offer us lodging so that our staff didn't have to travel. Many of our staff travel over half an hour a day each way, so they've offered lodging, and so having potentially more opportunities for lodging may help as well.
Thank you. Councillor Bosemarth?
Thank you for the presentation. It was really good. And it just warmed my heart to hear that Bracebridge and Gravenhurst were going to be satellites of Port Carling.
Yes, yes. And, you know, we're very fortunate for that because Port Carling has the only nurse practitioner-led hospice in Ontario, and this model works. And it is now becoming recognized in the province as a standard of practice. And so, you know, rural and northern will look to you, will look to Port Carling as leaders in this sector. So thank you for the opportunity and thank you for supporting this business.
Thank you. Councillor Kent?
Thank you. Thank you. I just had a question. There was one comment in here that I thought sounded ominous. It said MAHC will continue to fund the remaining 3 beds while they pursue a new partnership opportunity. I didn't know if that's good or bad for you and what that meant.
Okay, thank you.
It's potentially bad for us because that means that 3 beds will be unfunded. But we are working on strategies to circumvent that. And so we're hopeful that we'll have a solution before the partnership agreement ends.
Sorry, just to pick up on that comment, that was going to be my question. I think you alluded to the fact that they are redirecting, is it funding or support to Gravenhurst? And is that, perhaps you
Yes.
could just expand a little bit on that.
Sure. So MAC is developing a relationship with a Gravenhurst facility to open a wing for long-term care palliative or long-term care ALC beds. And our strategy with the district in collaboration with MAC is that opening more beds for long-term care is not going to solve the long-term care ALC issue. We already have over 800 long-term care beds in Muskoka. So adding another 10 or 20 is not going to solve this. The issue is going to be solved by funding the 3 beds at hospice because we know people die in long-term care. They don't come to hospice. They stay in long-term care. Bring those people who are dying in long-term care to hospice where they get the best quality of care and open the beds to people who are ALC in the hospital and put them in the long-term care beds where they belong. So that's we can, in those 3 beds with an average stay of 20 days, we can bring in 50 new people in those 3 beds every year. That is a renewable source of beds every year. That is how you reduce the ALC numbers.
Could you add, what is the cost of an ALC bed versus a hospice bed?
It's double. So an ALC bed at hospital is double the cost of a hospice bed.
Okay, some interesting questions to be. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have a question or comment? I think it goes without saying, we are very grateful as well for the service that you provide in our community. And for those of us who've had the good fortune to attend any of the events or participate in any way, it is a fantastic model. So thank you for your ongoing support. And thanks for coming today, both of you.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. Okay, committee, we will move on to item 5B. I believe Mr. Cullip is online. Is that correct?
I am here, yes.
Okay, we're just waiting to see you in person. There you are, Mr. Cullip. Thank you and welcome. Committee, this application or this discussion did come forward to our previous council in February 2022. And at that time, we realized there was a lot of questions, there was a lot of discussion. And it's a bit of a unique situation, I would say, for this discussion. Given that, the applicant or Mr. Cullip asked if he could have an extended amount of time just to go through this presentation, and that we hope that will help answer some of the questions that we may have. And then, of course, Mr. Cullip, what will happen at that point is, so I'll be keeping you firm to the 10 minutes, anytime between 5 and 10, largely because we do actually have a very extensive agenda today. We will open up the floor for questions similar to what we just did. If there's any further conversation, you'll note that further on in the agenda, that's when committee would have any further discussion as to next steps. So the focus right now will be to hear your presentation and then to have any kind of questions from committee. With that said, I will turn the floor over to you. Welcome, Mr. Cullip, and we will start your 10 minutes.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for the opportunity. If you can go to the next slide, please. So the quick agenda will just give you some background behind the golf course, the history of it, and then really the purpose of the study and what we hope to achieve throughout the course of the study. So the next. So the golf course was developed in 1920, and you can just carry through the next few, please. And it was developed over 1920-22, officially opened in 1920-22. So it has been in operations for over 100 years. And if you look at the next slide, you'll see that the golf course is bisected by Ferndale Road or Muskoka Road 27. And the next will just show an overview of that. And there's actually 6 holes of the golf course that play across the road. So it's not just that the golf course is on both sides of the road requiring crossings of the road by those players, but the actual holes themselves are played over the road. So balls are crossing, players are crossing as vehicles and other road users are using that road. And the next. So there's approximately 500 meters of road throughout the golf course. And the next. So this is just a Google Street View tour through the course, and you can just go through these one at a time if you would. You can just see that there is golf course on both sides. The road speed limit has been reduced to 40. You can see cart paths, fairways on both sides. You can see golfers on the right-hand side, cars in both directions, utilizing the road and through that area. So it's very much at the interest of those that are utilizing the course and that are utilizing the road to try to avoid obviously any conflict between one another. Well, certainly over the 100 years that the golf course has been in existence, the visitations to the golf course, visitations to the area, residents, traffic through the area, users of the road has definitely changed. It's increased. We're seeing not just cars, but we are seeing other active transportation uses of that road as well. And the next. So really from our perspective and that of the golf course, we're trying to come to a conclusion whereby the configuration of the golf course, the configuration of the road are at not with odds at one another. So looking to improve that situation to ensure the vehicular traffic and all other users of the road can be done so safely, and likewise that the users of the golf course can be done so safely. The next. So the process is following a Schedule C class environmental assessment. So this is a structured process that has been established for undertaking any type of a municipally oriented project. It defines the steps that one must follow. It defines the environments that one must consider and the points at which public consultation must be undertaken. So we have identified the problem. We have identified alternative solutions. So that's phase 2, and that's what I'll discuss today. And then the phases 3 and phases 4 will get into more of the details and the documentation. And again, there will be public consultation available at each opportunity along that process. The next. So the golf course is the proponent. They are steering the ship. They are leading the study, if you will, Tatham Engineering as the consultant. It is a little bit different in the sense that usually these types of projects are led by a municipality. But in this case, this is a private undertaking in context of how the road bisects the golf course. And then so we're looking at both the district and the township as obviously a key stakeholder, providing input throughout the process and providing approval of, or support for the recommendations as we go through the process and ultimately at the end of the process. And the next. So if we look at phase 2 of the Class EA process, it's really looking at alternative solutions to the problem. So the problem or the challenge that we have is the road bisecting the golf course. So we can do nothing. We can maintain the existing conditions. And obviously those safety concerns will remain. We can try to reconfigure the golf course. And that can be done in the manner that the golf course would still exist on both sides of the road. Golfers would still be required to cross the road to continue play, but the intent is that they would not play across the road. So they would not shoot golf balls across the road as vehicles and other road users are using the road. Or we can try to reconfigure the road, and that is effectively remove it from the golf course, put it somewhere else to completely separate the two activities. So in looking at, what is going to address the problem statement and to what extent, it's really alternatives or solutions B and C that we've continued forward with. So the next slide. And in trying to determine what is the best solution or what is the preferred solution to carry forward through the study, it's looking at what are the potential implications and impacts to the various environments. So in context of the natural environment, we've had natural environment specialists go through the area. And you can see this is a relatively broad study area extending all the way from Muskoka Road to 118 as Ferndale Road goes all the way through the area and through the golf course. They've identified a number of features. That includes watercourses, wetlands, topography features, and natural areas that we would want to certainly consider and try to avoid at all purposes. And if not, then look at what are the mitigation impacts. So the next slide. So there are, as I said, a number of watercourses. There are a number of threatened or endangered species that have been observed within the area. And then you've got your natural forested areas as well. So obviously any reconfiguration of the golf course will not change the footprint of the developed area. Any implications of a new road will have to be considered as we continue through the study. And again, trying to avoid potential impacts. And if we cannot, looking at what the mitigation would be if a new road is ultimately determined appropriate. And the next. And then looking at the social impacts. So obviously we have the Muskoka Lakes golf course property. We have a number of adjacent properties that are primarily private. We have crown land in the middle. And if you can go to the next slide. And then we have the Hazelwood Trail, and we have a number of users of that. So again, all of those need to be taken into account as well when we look at potential solutions for either realigning the road or realigning the golf course. And we recognize the importance of the trail through the area, and we recognize the importance of the natural environment through the area and trying to do our best to come to a solution that will balance everything through that area. Next slide. We've also undertaken a preliminary archaeological assessment through that study area, and based on their research to date, they've not found any archaeological resources. But again, at the same time, if a new road is to be constructed, if that's deemed the most appropriate solution at the end of the day, then additional studies would be necessary, as would additional studies for the natural environment to be ensured that any impacts that may result can be identified and can be appropriately mitigated. So the next. So I'm looking at the different solutions. As I said, alternative A, which is do nothing, doesn't really address it. So that's kind of been discounted. And then looking at either reconfiguring the golf course or reconfiguring the road, going through the evaluations, there are potential impacts. Obviously, if you're building a new road outside of a otherwise developed area, so what might those impacts be and how we can assess them. And then the primary feature to be addressed is the safety. So if we can eliminate that road crossing altogether, if we can remove that from the golf course footprint, then we can effectively remove any potential conflict. So the next slide. So our recommendation at this point through the evaluation is trying to reconfigure the road outside of the golf course footprint, thereby eliminating that road crossing, not just by players, but eliminating the road crossing by players, and then eliminating any safety concern for other road users that may result. A new road would be constructed to district standards, recognizing that Ferndale Road is a district road. And we'd also be looking to explore opportunities whereby we can perhaps provide some type of enhanced active transportation. So that's whether that is wider shoulders or whether that's a trail as well, working with the district in that regard, recognizing that roads are being transformed, not just for vehicle use, but we've got cyclists, we've got pedestrians, we've got other road users that really need to be taken into account as well. So that's really the phase 2 of the process. That's looking at alternative solutions. And then the next slide, if you will. This is just giving you a snapshot or a preview of the next phase of the work, which is phase 3 of the Class EA process. So we will be taking this to the public, at least the part of the phase 2, and provided that there is concurrence that looking at a new road is feasible and viable. These are some of the alternative routes that will be considered in the next phases. And as you can appreciate, we've identified that there are wetlands, there are topographic features, there is a historical landfill, there is the Hazelwood Trail, there are challenges with Muskoka Road 118 with respect to where a road might intersect there. So those are all things that are going to be considered in the next phases of the study as we get into more of the detailed evaluation of what possible routes are applicable, are appropriate, and are in fact feasible. And I can tell you certainly from our perspective and that of the golf course, those routes that bisect virgin lands, if you will, are the least favored. Those that skirt the golf course, trying to come along the edge of their property, minimizing the impacts, are what we certainly consider as the most favored. So the next slide, just to give you a
I think this is your final slide, correct? This is the final slide? Okay,
correct,
thank you.
yes. So as was noted, we had made this presentation in 2022. Over the past few years, we've looked at the alternative solutions. We're here again in 2025 to refresh, bring this back forward. We will continue with a study to look at the alternative routes and evaluation of those, and coming back to the township and the district in this regard as well for information and for comment, and providing the same opportunity for the public. So we expect that, if all goes well, we'd be in a position to implement kind of in 2027. And I believe the next one is just the question slide.
Yep, thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Okay, committee, I see a few hands up here. I saw Councillor Burry, Councillor Roberts, Councillor Zavitz, Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, and through you. Mine is more a comment to ensure that it gets onto the agenda of the consultants. Currently, Ferndale Road's a district road, and it does not meet the definition of a district road. There is a definition of what a district road should be. So I would like to make sure that the consultants take into account that this probably should not be a district road. It should be a township road. And there are many, many, many other district roads that should not be district roads that some of us at district are trying to deal with. But us designing a district road here when we don't need to design a district road and could get away with, and I say get away with because the requirements for a township road are not as stringent as a district road. It may have less environmental impact, but we need to get that on the radar of the consultants today, recognizing that there's likely going to be some fairly extensive discussions around what's a district road. If some of us in the township have our way, conversation at the district within the next little while.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll just limit my my points here to just questions. I'll have comments when we get to the comment part. But to the delegate, in preparation for today's delegation, I viewed the February 2022 GNF audiovisual. And in my opinion, basically, other than adding high-level information pertaining to potential natural and social environment impacts, today's presentation is not much different than the February 2022 presentation. I have two questions for the delegate. Why did the Muskoka Lakes Golf and Country Club elect not to attempt to answer or address the questions, concerns raised by the committee members in 2022? There's no slide on that. Second of all, in the time since the first delegation on this subject, did the Muskoka Lakes Golf and Country Club reach out to staff or any township councillor to understand any no-goes to township properties, and then ascertain what needed to be done to convince committee to consider potential alternative to achieve their position on no-goes? Those are my two questions.
Okay. Ms. Collins?
Thank you. Certainly, you're right. The presentation is very similar to what we provided several years ago, and the intent here was to provide a refresh, recognizing that we have not advanced to a great deal. We are going to the public as soon as we go to the district with this, and the intent here, I believe, was to receive any further comment from township through this deputation and also through the presentation to the public meetings or the stakeholder meetings. So I will have to go back, Councillor Roberts, to see what those questions were at the previous deputation, and if we have not addressed them through this, I will seek to do that in advance of the public meeting. With respect to any consultation between the golf course and the township, I'm not familiar if any of that has been undertaken at this point, recognizing that we're really at a stage where we're just looking at alternative solutions. And once we get into the alternative alignments, then looking at what potential property impacts might be, I think that would be an appropriate time to engage with the township with respect to any property implications, if I've understood your question correctly.
Yeah, just to follow up very quickly, Madam Chair.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thank you for considering to go back and take a look, because we did get off subject a bit when we went through it. There were a few questions that were asked. There was indication of no-goes or in some way. So I think that you maybe should, before your public meetings, socialize your those answers to those questions with someone on staff or council, or come back to council. That was sort of suggested in 2022 by Chair Zavitz. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bosenworth, was it? Or it was Councillor Zavitz first, sorry, then Mayor Kelly, then Councillor Bosenworth.
Good, thank you. Through you. Thank you. So, I think to what Councillor Burry has said, that is an interesting wrinkle that the township, could perhaps assume that road. Again, whatever is going to happen here seems like it's going to take an awfully long time, and this is quite a drawn out process. And I'm not sure why it has to be. So I would ask a question of our delegate. So what would the cost be to alter the golf course versus altering the road? Seeing as how you're going to be assuming the cost no matter what occurs down that road, if you will. Is there, you must have factored it all in. Is altering the golf course $3 million? Is altering the road $1.6 million? I guess from that perspective, I'm wondering if there's a cost consideration of other long-term, the course downtime. You're talking in your presentation 2027 before this thing hits its mark anyway. In that time, you could probably revegetate a golf course and get it back up and running. So I wonder if you could answer that first, and then I have a supplementary question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Collins?
Certainly, we have looked at the cost to do various road alignments on a preliminary nature, and we've presented that to the golf course. We've not come back with any costs to reconfigure the golf course itself, but certainly my understanding is through their discussion, through their consideration, that they feel the realigning of the road is more cost effective for them with respect to the dollars, and then with respect to the downtime or the lost revenues at the golf course as well. I think there's also appreciation for the golf course and its historic nature. It was designed by a Canadian Golf Hall of Famer. So I believe there is some reservation to make any alterations. If alternative solutions can be found, they want to maintain the golf course as currently is to the extent possible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Secretary.
Supplemental?
So thank you. So given that, I just would presume that if you were going to alter that course, that you wouldn't likely be in front of us or the district. And I guess that's a question perhaps to staff. If you were just going to alter the golf course, would you be in front of us, or would it be a committee of adjustment, or would it be, clearly there's other implications, environmental, et cetera, but would it be as big a deal if, I'm not sure who I'm asking here, to alter the course versus the road.
CAO Pink?
Thank you, through you. I believe actually the golf course did approach the municipality a few years ago and did make a site plan application that was before planning committee to realign the golf course, but it appears they haven't pursued that option. But that would be the process, would be, I believe, an amendment to their site plan.
Okay.
So just to that end, then clearly in your report, it's not quite as it seems in that your obviously a preference priority would be to change the road, which is thus the onerous task we're facing. Anyway, statement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Kelly, Councillor Bosemarth.
Thank you, and through you. I just have a couple of questions. Actually, Councillor Roberts asked or covered off one that I was really interested in, and that is what's happened in the last 3 years, because this is substantially similar to the pitch we heard in the spring of 22. I heard the answer to that. I get the impression both times. I was on council as a councillor 3 years ago, but in both presentations, I get the impression that somehow the golf course is waiting for council to sort of give the nod to one preference over the other, that somehow you're looking for direction, whether it's tacit or whether it's, you know, obvious and direct, that try this one or let's steer towards that one. And if that's the case, I don't see the hard question, and I haven't seen anything to indicate that we have a preference yet. And my second part of my question, and you mentioned it, I think, in your presentation, I think our then Director of Public Works, Ken Becking, mentioned it in the meeting 3 years ago. It's sort of unusual that this process is led by a private organization as opposed to the municipality. So my question is part of the delay over the last 3 years because there's some anticipation that the municipality needs to step up and take responsibility for this? That's number one. And number two, or is it just that you're waiting to hear something back concrete or more directional from the township as to what the preference of this council would be? Because if that's the case, I don't hear the ask. But I just get the sense that may be what's holding things up.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cullip?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Certainly what's happened over the past 3 years, you know, with COVID, I think projects have been stalled somewhat. We've advanced looking at the alternative solutions, but certainly not on the timelines that would have been preferable. Certainly my understanding is there is no waiting for input or direction or any confirmation from the municipality that is holding this up. Certainly the intent of the initial presentation was to garner support to proceed with the study, not to guarantee support for the findings. And I think that's kind of all we are looking for as well at this point, is just to ensure that the township is supportive of the study being undertaken and providing input as a stakeholder throughout. So there's no coordination of the study results or progress tied to any input from the township, to my understanding. This is a completely a separate undertaking that the golf course is doing. Ideally, at the end of the day, we would like support from the township and the district with respect to the recommendations that come out of it. But at this point, there's nothing that we are waiting for on the township or the district for that matter.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bosemarth?
Thank you. My question was asked by Councillor Zavitz.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nishikawa?
Thank you, through you to staff. I was challenged going over this report, and because there's been so many asks from the golf course over my term as a councillor, which is too long in some people's case, but I really kind of think that if possible, when a report comes forward, if we could show all of the different choices or applications that have come forward over the years or asks. So where I was trying to lay out, okay, what did we just approve and where is it on this map? Like all of those types of things, right? And again, I've seen a different presentation prior to the 2022 when we talked about the Hazelwood Trail, and things don't look the same. And I'm just really struggling with remembering or seeing on paper the applications that we have approved for that golf course.
Okay, I just wanted, is there a question at this point for staff? I just,
That's,
the question.
can that happen? Like I'm
Can that
asking.
happen? CAO Pink?
Thank you, through you. Certainly, if committee directs that a staff report return with further information, we can provide a thorough background of public, whether it be planning applications or requests with respect to the road that have been made to the municipality in past decisions. Happy to do that.
Thank you. Supplemental?
It's not just the road from my perspective. It's also where we've approved a building to be located, or even I saw something that I didn't realize that we had approved was the landing, because now there's a landing there, right? And I didn't, so it's, I don't expect, but I'm just saying there's much more than just the road conversation.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other hands. I have a question, and I think I'm just seeking clarification, if I may. If we could put up the study process part of the state presentation, which on the presentation, I believe it's page 16. I'm just looking for clarification as somebody who was sitting here on 2022, and I remember we were all on Zoom at that point, and I think it was confusing because this is an unusual approach. So as I was reading today, I was thinking to myself, what has changed? And so this is the process of an EA process, as I understand it. And as I was listening today, what I think I heard is that we're actually in phase 3. So that, in fact, the EA process is well underway. Is that correct?
The presentation in 2022 focused on phase 1, you know, why we were doing the study. The presentation today and where we're at is really focused on phase 2, and that's what we will present to the public this coming summer. So that's really the alternative solutions. That's the do nothing, realign the golf course, or realign the road. Phase 3, which is the next phase, will deal with, provided the realigning the road is deemed appropriate, we'll deal with the alternative alignment. So those alignments that I've presented are really just a preview of the next phase, if you will. So we want to close out phase 2 first, going to the township, going to the district, and going to the public. And then we will have the same process through phase 3 with respect to the consultation.
Okay, thank you. So the study in 2022, I think that's when you were seeking the support for the study. I think that is now underway as I see it. And I think part of that was and I did also go back to review it, was the importance of the public consultation. And I see that as the slide underneath. So I think what you just said is that you will be going out to the public this summer under phase 2. And as a member of the community TML or the corporation, if we want to participate in that, we would have the opportunity to present as comment at that period as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely, and we would very much welcome any continued input through that process.
Okay, thank you. And I think my second question is the discussion on the road did come up 3 years ago, as well as in the possibility of the township having to take on the responsibility of that road moving forward if it was in fact realigned. And just I guess a question for staff, is that something that it would require work on our end, or would the expectation be that as part of this process that they would come back with this financial analysis and an understanding of that assumption of a new road? So Mr. Cullip, maybe I can start with you and then ask staff.
Certainly the expectation, at least from our perspective at this point, it is the district road. We will be coordinating with the district, understanding that the costs would be borne by the golf course and that the district would ultimately assume the new road. That's our expectation. We do understand the nature of Ferndale Road, that it doesn't serve as a district road, that doesn't meet the district road standards, and that it could ultimately be considered as a township road through discussions with the township and the district. But until that happens, we will be moving forward as if it were a district road.
Thank you.
And the district did confirm that yes, we need to proceed with a wider 26-meter right-of-way through the planning process to reflect a district standard.
Okay, and this is going to be a comment, even though I'm trying to stay disciplined on the, I know, on the questions, but I think I heard the discussion of active transportation being considered on the road. I would separate personally the active transportation need. I support that. But I think a trail in the nature is a separate action or a separate initiative. So those two I don't think are interchangeable, in my opinion, but I would look to that definition as we move forward. Are there any other questions or comments for Mr. Cullip? So Mr. Cullip, Councillor Roberts? Not comment, my apology. It was a question. We are going to have a discussion. I said that. Mr. Cullip, we will have a further discussion on this topic, I'm sure, as we have it noted later in the agenda. You're welcome to stay and listen if you would like for the rest of this meeting, or alternatively, our clerk will follow up with you afterwards to let you know any next steps.
Wonderful.
And thank you
again.
thank you very much for coming today.
Yeah.
Okay, committee, we are now going to move on to item 7A, which is Mr. Moore. So we will come and get you, I think, yeah. Okay, Mr. Moore.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and good morning, committee. Today's report is regarding the next steps in the arena feasibility study process. As committee is aware, we embarked on a journey to develop a long-term plan for our Port Carling and Bala arenas. That process started with an arena feasibility study. That document provides us with a building and site condition analysis of the two arenas currently. It allowed us the opportunity to engage with the public to determine the public's needs in regards to recreation facilities, and also provided a range of some possible alternatives with some high-level Class D estimates to go along with them. All this providing us with background information to carry forward into the next steps of the process. Those next steps was the undertaking of a level of service study. That process, as we're well aware, is currently underway. And at the March committee meeting, staff were directed to develop an action plan as it spoke specifically to the arenas and fire halls as part of that study. As such, today's report outlines that action plan specifically for the arenas. The action plan can be found in Appendix 1 and outlines the various steps staff envision getting us to a final decision with this committee and council. Ultimately, to quickly summarize the action plan itself, it comes down to us determining three big questions. And this is what is going to be the outcome over the next several months. First, we need to determine how many arenas we need, whether that is 2, 1, or 0. Next, we need to determine the location of those facilities. And third, we will determine whether we need to renovate or construct new. So ultimately, out of this process, we will have those questions answered. It'll be at that time which we can then begin the more finer details, kind of the how of the process, what will be in those, how we're going to fund, costs, etc. With that, I think, Chair, I'll turn it over if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. So committee, we do have a resolution. At this point, I will open it up to questions before reading that resolution, and then we can have a discussion. Councillor Nishikawa?
My request would be if we could read the resolution.
Okay, I just would
Thank
like
you.
to see if there's any other questions first. Councillor Bosenworth?
Yes, and through you, in this process of determining how many, where, and, do we rebuild or build new? Is that a staff exercise?
Okay, thank you.
Or, what is that exercise? How's that exercise done?
Yes, through you, Chair. It is staff, it is this committee, and it is the public. So all three will be part of that process. Initially, it is going to be staff in this committee, as identified in the action plan, narrowing that list down of preferred options. And you'll see within that action plan, there are many opportunities where we regroup at this table here. And then you'll see in part 4, I believe it is, there's an opportunity to engage with the public again, and ultimately then return back to this table to determine that final decision.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kent, Councillor Zavitz.
I just had one question. When we saw the last materials, and I don't remember what I think it was the comprehensive, the decision of making an arena decision was so complicated by the fact that you added in this building and you added in a pool and you added in, it's going to be I don't think I think that's potentially a very bad way to do it, because the arena decision is getting too big. And therefore, in my opinion, is going to become a real financial problem. I don't know how you carve it up to be the arena decision, what's right for the arenas, separate from the rest of the stuff, but I suggest that you may have to do that to make it a palatable, cost-wise, something that we could digest and make a decision that's a reasonable decision. But I may be confused about what I saw last.
Okay. Mr. Murray?
Yes, through you, Chair, you're correct. The alternatives provided in the study did include some other items within them. And in developing this action plan, staff couldn't agree more with your comments. Our plan through this is to bring it right back, just the arenas. Let's focus there, get the decision made there, and then we can determine any additional items, kind of the how afterwards. So, yes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Zavitz?
Thank you, and through you to Corey. So Corey, in looking at the financials of the usage piece, and dollars and cents is one thing, actual physical usage by our community is quite another. I'm wondering, and maybe I missed it, but I thought I read it a couple of times. I'd love to know actual usage. I mean, the number 53,000 in Bala and 84,000 in Port Carling for the season. I presume that's that's a year, so that's probably pickleball and hockey or ice skating or whatever it is. Can you speak to how many occasions our residents and taxpayers and traveling public used our two facilities?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, through you, Chair. I don't have that off the top of my head. What I will say is that analysis is part of part 1 of this action plan. So you'll see the first committee check-in occurs after part 1, and it would be at that time where we deliver that analysis to help guide us on kind of shortlisting those options. So that's certainly staff's expectation, is to dive deeper into that. Yes.
Secretary?
Yes.
Right. Thank you. And through to Corey again. So to that end, one of the thing that I certainly notice and am constantly questioned about is the usage piece, and how could you consider taking away our ice, for example? I think to make these big weighty decisions, we need that kind of information. And if it's 12 people on a Tuesday or Friday or whatever it is, and that's it, and then next week there's 3, I mean, it sort of is a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If there isn't the usage piece, then does it make sense to spend $239,000 and keep one arena or the other open? So that's vital.
So I think, just to summarize, I think in step 1, that level of detail and analysis will be included and it will come back to this group.
Yes, that's correct.
A more comprehensive view of that, I think, to determine that first question, which is the number of arenas. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, to help us kind of simplify the preferred options. We want to definitely have that analysis before we engage the public with any further input on those options. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I will read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Bosenworth, seconded by Councillor Burry. Whereas the arena feasibility study attached as appendices 1 and 2 to report PW 2024-025 was received by committee on April 10th, 2024, and the matter referred for consideration in the level of service study. Now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to implement the action plan outlined in report PW 2025-022, and that the results of this process be used to inform committee's decision on initiating formal arena redevelopment plans. Comments? Councillor Roberts, Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, Mr. Moore, I love the plan that you're having. I love the point that this council will make a hard decision this year on a path forward. In your report, you mentioned that the possibilities of working committee. My position or thoughts on that is a working committee at this time, I don't think is needed, since we've already engaged the public to cast their opinion, and they provided, and we've already considered alternatives. So I think that we as the township should take all the information we have and come back with the alternatives. I like that how you have separated the arena ice surface and summer play area from all the other things that we could add, swimming pool and stuff like that. So it makes our decision a little easier. But again, you probably align any decision based on those future things in the next 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's my suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Zavitz?
Thank you, through you, I guess, again to Corey. So the action plan, which is what our focus is here today, there are 4 items, but really there's one item, and it's number 1, which is the short list. Can you give us a sense of your perception of timing on number 1 in terms of expectation of staff, or you're thinking based on how intimate you are with this concept? Can you give us a sense as to where you think we are in terms of how many months or days or weeks, or are we making that decision today?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Moore?
Yes, through you, Chair. The action plan does outline a bit of a timeline. It's not hard by any means. I think in part 1, we've given ourselves ample time. I think, if anything, I'd like to maybe speed that section up a bit. Ideally, we can get out and engage with the community and the stakeholders come early fall when kind of the season starts back up again in the arenas, right? That's going to give us the opportunity to get out there, engage, and be seen with them. So I expect kind of mid to late summer, we should be able to return to discuss those as a group here, and then plan the next steps with community engagement. Yeah.
So just for clarification, the action plan that you have in the report is a guidepost, but you have flexibility to, as you get information, to bring things back at a time that is kind of guided by you. Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Bosenworth, your mic is on. Did you have a question or no? Okay. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, I have called the question. All those in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Mr. Moore, for creating us a path forward on a hot topic. Committee, we will let Mr. Moore continue and then take a break if that's okay. Okay. Thank you. We're just going to wait for Mayor Kelly. Yes.
While we're waiting for the mayor, could I just ask Corey why he's not got any blue and white on?
I got them on. Don't you worry. It's game day.
Okay. Go Leafs, go. The next report is for information only report, and I will turn it back to you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, to recap, just an information report today on an overview of our arena fees and the related policies. Committee will recall in March, we received a delegation from a group asking for the waiver of arena fees. It was at that time staff were asked to return back to provide committee an overview of the related fees and the associated policies. So with that, I'll start. Obviously, the fees and charges bylaw sets the fees for all of our facilities for rental and usage of them. With that, we have a facility user fee policy. And this is a new policy, and it outlines which community groups and which functions receive either discounts or exemptions from those fees stated in the bylaw. Within that policy, it's clear that arena fees must always apply. And the reason for that was versus the community centers, for instance, where a lot of the fees are exempt. The arenas have a lot of associated costs with them. We're required to staff them, etc. Whereas community centers, the operating costs are not as large, and the user groups are using those on their own behalf with no staff present. So with the arenas, there's certainly some added costs. With that, then, groups interested in hosting events, etc., at any of our arenas or parks are then encouraged and have the ability to apply for a grant through the municipal grant policy. Whereas a group that is already using the community center and has therefore received an exemption for the fees is not eligible through that grant policy for an event or program, etc. So with that, should committee wish to have greater clarity and better align these policies to eliminate the potential for reoccurring delegations, staff could look to return back to slightly update the facility user fee policy in conjunction with the procedural bylaw through the clerk's department, just to make it clear when those delegations should be permitted and not. So with that, Chair, staff are happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Zavitz?
Thank you, through you. So Corey, I do find totally supportive of this. I do find there's a gap, and just as a scenario, for example, when there's a Battle of Santa Claus parade, perhaps I don't know, a Fort Carney Santa Claus parade, and there's the thought that at some point in time, either pre or post, there's free skating for an hour, 2 hours. And what I found is that it's very ad hoc. You call up the guy that's at the arena and he says, yeah, you know what, sure, you can use it for an hour. So I'd wonder, is there a more formal process, or, you know, should we be held to a higher standard than currently where we can pick up the phone and grab an hour? That isn't reflected in your commentary, and it probably should be in there.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Moore?
Yes, through you, Chair. A lot of those situations, those more ad hoc one-offs, are previously approved through resolutions through this committee and council, and are kind of those long-standing, reoccurring annual events. We think about the skating over the holidays and March break as example. Those have been long occurring, much longer than I've been here. So anything other than those, we would refer to these policies and bylaws to come to a solution or provide an answer to those individuals.
A supplementary, then could we actually list them? Could we acknowledge what they are? Because you know, the public finds that confusing.
Yeah, through you, Chair, sorry. I think if we were to update that facility user fee policy, we could certainly list those dates specifically and those events, yes.
So just for clarity, then, if we're looking under the continuous improvement portion of your report, these are the types of things that we could ask staff to come back with a revised procedural bylaw that would help direct future asks to the community grant program and provide further clarity within the procedural bylaw. That's what I'm hearing, a bit of support for. Okay. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Roberts?
Thank you. I have comments. I like the idea of updating the policies and procedures. I just want to bring up the report. Just bear with me for a second. Where is it here? In one point of here it is. On page 51 of the report, it said, should committee wish to provide greater clarity and better alignment of policies, such as, a delegate coming in or before, and they have to align better with the community grant process, and the value to the community. I'm supportive of that. For them to have some sort of checks and balances with staff before coming to committee. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. So I'm hearing a bit from a couple of members, and I would certainly have my support that if there's a desire to have staff come back in future with an amended bylaw policy, procedural bylaw, my apologies, that we could then make a comment on. Is that just a quick nod on heads? Okay, Councillor Roberts, you had your hand up, but Councillor Nishikawa. Okay, no. Councillor Nishikawa.
Thank you. I'm not sure how to form this as a question, but in my experience of what we're discussing, there's only been a couple of instances. And from my impression, it's always last minute because somebody else hasn't thought about it. At this point now, I think everybody knows the procedures. I just don't know that we need to get another staff report. People know that they need to come forward to the township and then they'll be guided, whatever they need. I'm just a little concerned that we keep taking on the same applications on short notice. And at one point, we have to put a hard stop to that type of action. They know there's a procedure that has to be followed, but I don't know that we need a staff report to get people to tell you that or for us to ask them to do that.
Thank you. Councillor Kent?
How long ahead does the guy who runs the hockey tournament need to request his fee waiver if he wants it? Because my view was that when I read it, and I may be wrong on the amount of time, it seemed like a really long time for people who are busy with their daily lives to plan for their hockey tournament, which they may or may not be having every year. It's a question. Mm-hmm. And I viewed that as a reason why the policy wasn't being followed, because it was impractical. Mm-hmm.
So through you, Chair, the policy currently states 6 months in advance of the event. Yes.
I see, and that means that if you're having a tournament in January, you got to remember in the middle of the summer. And it just seemed to me like it's an impractical. The idea of coming in ahead of time is what we want everybody to do, but maybe 3 months ahead would be a more reasonable time period. And that I saw as the hindrance in why people aren't following the policy. That's just my personal view.
Thank you. A little bit of a follow-up from that. Two separate things. An application for funding, so the community grants is one thing, but that's not how these applications have come forward. It's been, again, waiver, yes, and different things. And honestly, anybody that's had a kid in hockey, it's all planned a year ahead. Like, it's just the reality of scheduling and that type of thing. And I have no doubt that, we're only talking now about one application, that they're going to do the same thing again and again. And, but quite frankly, and only reason why I'm saying this is because I had a meeting yesterday with the Cranberry Festival, and I said, everything should be in today. All the applications should be in today, not waiting 2 months before, you know, the event sort of thing. So that's all I'm just saying. If we don't start directing people correctly today, but I don't believe we need more staff reports.
Councillor Zavitz?
Thank you, through you. I do agree with Councillor Nishikawa, and I think that this document here could be a hard stop on, you know, I can tell you that the person that came forward last year is not coming forward ever again in that regard, and we'll be using our granting programs. That's an educational thing, but I do think this could be a hard stop. And although I do like the comment that 3 months instead of 6 months, just in case there, you know, but that's just a stopgap measure. I think that we should have a hard stop on this.
So, Mr. Moore?
Yes, through you, Chair, and that is staff's envision through better aligning these policies, is to be able to direct those inquiries to the proper channel, and eliminate them having to come here. Ideally, we have proper policies, programs in place to handle each scenario. So that would be part of this process, yes.
So just for clarity, it's not a comprehensive staff report. This is almost a minor amendment to the policies, just to clean up some of these things and make it sure we're all clear. Is that correct? It's not a
That's
huge
correct.
undertaking.
No.
Okay, so staff have drafted a possible resolution. With that in mind, I would just need to make sure, I have it moved by Councillor Roberts. I would just need to have a seconder at this point, but let me read the resolution to see if there's somebody in the audience who would like to do that. Be it resolved. Okay. So do you want me to read it then? I'll just read it with you as a seconder and then we can make a decision. Moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Be it resolved that staff be directed to report back to committee with changes to the facility user fee policy C-PR-14 and or procedural bylaw 2023-089 to provide greater clarity and criteria for the ability to request the waiving of fees and ability to apply to the community grants program. Okay. Councillor Roberts, Councillor Zavitz, that captures, okay. So,
Sorry, Sue. Sorry, Chair. May I speak?
yes,
Yes. Okay, yes, you said and, maybe it is or the community grant program, because we give out a lot of the money early in the season. Just
Okay.
a thought.
I think the direction that is being provided to have them look at that and come back to us with the idea, just the way it's written right now. So committee, this wasn't on the agenda today, based upon the discussion and some of the thoughts coming out of the information report. I have a resolution on the table moved by Councillor Roberts and seconded by Councillor Zavitz to have staff come back with these amendments. I've read that question. Are there any other further questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Thank you. That carries. I appreciate your help. Director Peroshi, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moore, for your great work. It is 10:15 committee. We will take a break till 10:30 and resume today's meeting. Thank you. Or do I say something? Okay. We are back. And Councillor Roberts, we're moving on to item 8, excuse me, 8A. Welcome, Ms. Shorey. Story. My goodness, what did I say?
Thank you.
Thank
I'll
you,
turn
Chair.
off your screen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Mazan, and good morning, committee. My first report before you is regarding a license agreement renewal application that has been received from the landowners at 1108 Morris Road, looking to recognize and continue to permit the encroachment of an existing dock located on a portion of Township Original Shore Road Allowance, as their existing license agreement is set to expire. Staff have reviewed the application and are recommending approval subject to the conditions noted in the staff report. And with that said, I will turn it back to the chair.
Thank you. Committee, are there any questions? Seeing none, I will read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Zavitz, seconded by Councillor Nishikawa. Be it resolved that license agreement renewal application LA-02-25 POTS be approved subject to the following conditions. 1, that a draft numbered reference plan of survey satisfactory to the township be prepared and provided to the clerk for review within 1 year of the date of this conditional approval. 2, that the township be in receipt of the following from the acting solicitor. Confirmation from a title search that the applicant is the owner of the abutting land and that the encroachments are located on township land, and a draft license agreement to the satisfaction of the township. 3, that the applicants provide proof of liability insurance covering the encroachments in the minimum amount of $2 million with the township named as additional insured. And 4, payment of any applicable fees related to the preparation of the license agreement, including but not limited to the solicitor's time and disbursements, as well as confirmation applicable property taxes have been paid up to date. So I've now read the resolution. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. That carries. Thank you, Ms. Dory. And the next one, please.
Yep. Thank you, Chair. So the second report before you is regarding a sale of an original road allowance application received from abutting landowners at 21 Armstrong Point Road. Staff have reviewed the application and are recommending approval subject to the conditions noted in the staff report. And with that said, I will turn it back to the chair.
Okay, thank you. Committee, any questions? Seeing none, I'll read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that original road allowance application ORA-01-25 McDermott be approved subject to the following conditions. 1, a corresponding draft numbered reference plan of survey shall be prepared and provided to the clerk for review within 1 year of the date of this conditional approval. 2, that the township be in receipt of the following from the acting solicitor. Confirmation that public notice of the proposed disposition was published pursuant to the township policy C-LS-06. 2, confirmation from applicable agencies that they have no concerns with the proposed disposition. And 3, a road closing bylaw, a declaration of surplus resolution, and any related necessary documentation to effect the disposition. 3, payment of any applicable fees for the land costs, solicitor's time, and disbursements, as well as confirmation applicable property taxes have been paid up to date. And 4, that the township forward correspondence to abutting landowners of the original road allowance to be closed, roll number 541-02, requesting either a confirmation of participation in the transaction or a waiver of interest. Should the township not receive a response by the specified deadline, the failure to respond will be treated as a waiver of interest. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. That carries. Thank you very much. Ms. Dory? Alrighty, we are now 8C. All right, thank you, Ms. Jeffries.
Good morning, Chair Mazan and committee. The staff report is related to the results up to the end of the first quarter is for information only. The report has tables with the financial category results by category and by division. Most of the variances shown are explained by timing, and there's other variances that are offset between the divisions. So they do not show when you look at the report by category. And when comparing the overall results by 2024, we're not that much different. Due to this, staff felt it was that identifying some of the risks that could potentially impact us as the year continues to be beneficial knowledge for the committee. The risks include a potential shortfall for the delay of the launch of the short-term licensing program. Staff are working on the software, and revenue will only be reported once the issuance of the short-term rental licenses. So the impact will not be known until later in the year. The other risk is weather. As in the last quarter of 2024, the heavy snow continued to impact the first quarter of 2025. The heavy snow has impacted divisions like the arenas and community centers with the snow removal costs. The largest impact is with the winter control budget. And looking at the end of the first quarter, 22% of that budget, or about $235,000, was remaining. And if we look at winter control budget over the past few years, generally at the end of the first quarter, there's 40 to 50% of the budget left. But then looking at expenses over the same time frame, the expenses for the last part of the year vary substantially. For example, in 2021, we only used about $110,000 for the rest of the year. And in 2024, we used $711,000. So, and the bulk is in the last quarter. So with that, with the winter control, the budget variances will be impacted greatly by what weather we have in the last quarter. The other item is a snowstorm or the ice storm. And the numbers that are identified as a weather event relating to the ice storm are claimable amounts for the municipal disaster recovery funding and do not include regular hours spent in cleanup efforts by staff. In this report, only about $53,000 in expenses were recorded for the ice storm. And when I ran a report this morning, we are now at about close to 700,000. And staff will track allowable costs. And I believe the plan is to bring forward a resolution to apply for the funding in the June meeting. And the other item in the report, the capital spend of the first quarter was not material. And then again, this is not abnormal for a lower spend in the first quarter. If I look at previous years, it again varies greatly, and it depends on the type of carryover projects and the projects that we have in the current year. And as in Q4 of last year, we will have more detailed capital reports as the spending increases as the year goes on. And if you have any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Jeffrey. Questions? Committee, Councillor Bosemore.
Thank you, and through you. I'm very interested in this potentially the application to get our money back. I think it's around, if I did the math right, it's around 500,000 we have to spend before we are eligible. Is that correct? Which is 3% of 17 million.
Through you. I think it's around mid 400s because it's our 2023 tax levy. Okay. But yes, there's.
So it looks like we are going to be eligible.
Yeah.
And that would be a huge relief to us.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Councillor Zavitz, Councillor Kent.
Thank you. Well, I think it speaks to the vulnerability of here we are, and it, it does speak to when we're at budget time, and we just can't possibly budget for what might happen. We budget for what we know to be coming forward. So I mean, I don't know what the appetite here is. Do you feel that we should have some sort of a climatic piece to this budgeting where we allow 100,000, 200, something? Because we can't always rely on Doug Ford to pay all of our bills. And look what, whether it's a fire, people going out to help out at the hospice during a storm or whatever, those are costs to the township. Is there a way in your mind that we could somehow soften the potential impact? Because
Thank you. Director Donaldson?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. So I think that would be the reason why we keep our reserves, right, is for these unexpected events. So I think as long as we're making contributions to reserves to smooth out the years where we have particularly impactful events, and are able to contribute in those years where we don't have, I think that's where you kind of have that hedging, that opportunity to kind of risk manage some of those extraordinary costs.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kent?
Thank you, and through you. Can you just, I had a little trouble going through the report. Can you just summarize what the projected impact of the short-term rental, and let's assume we don't get reimbursed for the storm costs, what they might aggregate to? Is it almost $1 million between the short-term rental issues, the costs we put in, less the fact that we haven't received the revenue, and then the storm, which are the two major items I think noted, what we're looking at in terms of potential problem in the budget, that's all.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, the short-term rental licenses is about 500,000. I don't think we expect to not receive any, but we want to identify it as a potential risk. The weather is like with the snow removal or winter control, it will vary dependent on if we have a winter like 2024 or if we have one like, so there could be a couple of 100,000, it could be more depending very greatly on weather. And the ice storm, as I said, we have spent about 700,000 right now on the ice storm, and the cleanup hasn't been completed.
So 500 for short-term rentals.
700 or more for the ice storm.
700 for the ice storm and another 200 or 300 on snow removal, so $1 million, 3 or 4. Does that sound right?
So
These are
through
big
you,
numbers.
Chair,
That's
I think
what we
that,
get.
I think that'd be worst case scenario, that we got nothing from the province for the ice storm, that we received 0 income from short-term rental in this year. I don't think any of those are likely scenarios. So I think that would be at the very outside worst case scenario. But I think, there's a potential that there could be a significant risk to the plan, which is why we thought it was prudent to just make sure that committee was aware that, these unplanned events and, are putting pressure on this year's budget.
On the short-term rentals though, why would we ever get any income this year? It would really now start coming in January. I'm confused about that.
Okay, so perhaps I'm getting a CAO Pink. Perhaps you can make a quick comment.
Again, we certainly don't mean to stifle the discussion, but Ms. Director Huff does have a report on the short-term rentals with a number of financial analysis on tomorrow's agenda, and that might be a preferred location of that discussion.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Thank you for your very comprehensive reports. Nine A, Chief Morale, welcome to the podium.
Good morning, committee, and through you to committee. In front of committee is a report that revisits the fire station location study. This is presenting an action plan created to assist committee in making a final decision as it relates to the fire station location study. Committee may recall a year ago, the fire station location study was received almost a full year, in July of last year. And that fire station location study was received by committee, and it was intended to inform and update the asset management planning that we have been embarking upon. In that fire station location study, it was completed in 2 phases. The first phase looked at information about the buildings themselves and the data. And the second phase had to do with alternatives and identification of a model. Plus, committee asked for extra stakeholder engagement, which was provided at that time. I stand for questions about the action plan that is presented here before committee.
Thank you. Thank you. So committee, there is a resolution, but at this point, let's ask questions and then I can read the resolution. Okay, Councillor Bosemarth.
Thank you, Chief. Is there a timeline on this? I was looking through the report that we had a timeline on the previous one. Did I miss it?
Yeah, for committee, there is a third action plan adjustment. It's a Gantt chart that has been added on as the appendix 3 to the
Okay,
report.
Thank you.
Page 219. Thank you for that. But appendix 3.
It offers.
So we are currently in the this stage. There will be some further gathering of information, primarily the financial. And then this would come back. I'm assuming a bit like the arena discussion. It could be August, September, it could be earlier, depending on how the information comes together. Is that correct?
Yeah, through
Okay.
you, one additional piece that I'll add that we were just discussing as a sidebar right before I presented this report that wasn't included in the original fire station location study is the financial piece will include what is contained within the buildings. So for committees, insights on how many assets we would be reducing in the rolling stock if committee should choose a model that has less locations today.
So just for clarification, it's not just, so it's not just the fixed structures we're looking at, it would be the entire package. So all the trucks and other amenities that would go.
Yeah, through you.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Nishikawa?
My question would be through you to Ryan. I had a meeting last night with folks down Southwood and 9 Mile, and I couldn't answer the question of how long it will actually now take for firefighters to get to their locations.
Okay, thank you.
Through you to the counselor, are you referring if we had if
What would you think fire?
if the location in Torrance were to change? I could respectfully submit that it would probably be the exact same amount of time due to the fact that the staffing that is in Torrance today is primarily Torrance and Walker's Point, and it's divided between those two fire halls.
Okay, thank you. Is that, oh, no, that's okay. Supplemental. Will that type of information be included in that next phase? As part of the analysis that comes back to us?
Through you, we definitely could include that in the two different packages of analysis that we're presenting. So just for committee's insight, for those that haven't read the complete report, the report divides itself to present both the option of the 7-station model and the 5-station model. And primarily we were focused around the financials driving both of those models. What we can do is revisit some of the data points from the original package that did cite the times that it would take to respond from each of the locations and where that fits in with best practice.
Thank you. Okay. I don't see any more hands up, so I'll read the resolution and then we can have further conversation or discussion. Moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Whereas the fire station location study attached as Appendix 2 to Report ES-2025-009 was received by committee on July 10th, 2024. Resolution GFC-5-10-0724, and the matter referred for consideration in the level of service study. Now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to implement the action plan outlined in Report ES-2025-009, and that the results of this process be used to inform committee's decision on initiating the township's preferred fire station model. Are there any further comments? Councillor Bosemorth?
Not a comment, it's really a question. When you go through the reports, it shows for the two options that we're considering, I think it's 5 and 7. It shows react time or response time. So really the question is, and you can look at the maps and it looks like we are not having any deterioration in response time. But another way to look at it is say, if you had a map that said, is there any area where response time is less than it is currently? Would there be anything on the map?
Okay, thank you.
Through you to the councillor, yes, that's a very complicated question. So a response time in its entirety makes up 4 components. So it's what we call the alarm transfer time from dispatch. That's actually part of the response time. And then we look at this big chunk that is called assembly time. That's whereby your volunteer members, the amount of time it takes for them to respond from wherever they are to the fire station. Typically in a volunteer fire model, that's an added time that you do not see in the full-time fire service model. And that time, it often relates to where people live or work or cohabit, like where they actually are when the calls drop. And what we have done internally to shave that time off is we allow members to respond to various different fire halls, and we carry gear in those fire halls for those members. So should a member live in Manette but work at Walker's Point for most of the day, they have gear in both locations. They essentially become a second member. So we've done that work in order to shave off that assembly time. The third component to response time is the actual travel time. And then the fourth component is what they do when they get to the location, whereby we've provided them the right vehicle to actually do the things, touch the patient, flow the water, whatever it might be. But that's response time in its entirety. And I can break all of that out traditionally, historically, where we've had response times, and show a committee exactly what that would look like in the two different models.
Thank you. Councillor Bosemarth, supplemental.
Well, so the question was, on either one of those two options, will there be areas that, including all of that complexity, that when they'll have less, the response time will be poorer? Do we know that yet? I mean, I think maybe you just implied that you don't know that.
Chief
Through
Morrell?
you to the counselor, poorer versus what?
Current.
Through you to the
Yes.
counselor, I cannot make an accurate judgment around that without doing the analysis, but I would hasten to say that perhaps it will stay relatively the same. And that is mainly due to the fact that there are best practices about number of personnel that attend a scene and what you do when you get to a scene. So for committee's consideration, if you send a fire truck with one person on it to a call, that one person cannot do anything until more people arrive, versus sending a truck with a proper complement of people that when it gets there, maybe it takes a little longer for them to get into the truck to go, but when they get there, they actually do things when they arrive. Does that
CAO,
help?
yeah, CAO Pink, would you like to add something?
Thank you. Just wanted to highlight again that what we're considering today is just an action plan to make those decisions. Now, obviously, this will be much more consolidated or expeditious than the arena feasibility study, those next steps, because of the number of variables. But you'll notice in the Gantt chart, one of the first steps is to review background information. So not just financial and implementation with the fire. And certainly we can work with Chief Morrell to make sure when this does come back that we provide more further detailed summary of the fire station location study to answer these response time questions. So that'll be considered through this process.
Thank you for that summary. That was helpful. Councillor Zabit.
Thank you. It's for you to the chief. So if I go back to phase one, the genesis of the report, and if I go down to where the information as it related to, and of course now I can't find it, as it related to having, if we go to the model where we actually close a couple of stations, there was going to be some sort of a benefit to the township by moving a couple of vehicles. Is that realistic in where we were compared to where we are now in terms of, we just, bought a $700,000 fire truck. How realistic is it that there were, I think the consultant said there could be savings of up to $1 million in this report. Is that still status quo now versus when the report was first crafted? Like, are you in your mind as closest to it, thinking that there could be $1 million worth of savings or rationale to some of that dispensing of equipment, closing a couple of stations?
Thank you. Chief Morrell.
Through you to the council and to committee. Yes, I wholeheartedly would say that there are savings involved if you reduce the locations, mainly because all of the things have gone up in price. So to the councillor's point, the trucks have gone up, but right now, the way the municipality sits, you still require 20 of them to meet the requirements that we have set about in the ENR bylaw. If you have less locations, therefore you require less of those assets, you still have that replacement stock in the asset pool. And maybe you're building new fire stations for more money, but you're having fewer of them. You're basically catching up to the problem that already exists. Too many fire stations, so many assets.
So
for
this
a
type
limited
of
budget.
analysis, just for clarity, this is the type of analysis we will be getting through the action plan.
Correct.
Step one, which is the financial strategy. So I just want to make sure we don't get too into the weeds. And I think that's the whole point of bringing this forward today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I do have a resolution I could read. I will read that, and then we have any questions or comments after. Moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Zavitz. Whereas the fire station location study attached as Appendix 2 to Report ES-2025-009 was received by committee on July 10th, 2024, Resolution GFC-5-10-0724, and that the matter referred for consideration in a level of service study. Now therefore, it be it resolved that staff be directed to implement the action plan outlined in Report ES-2025-009, and that the results of this process be used to inform committee's decision on initiating the township's preferred fire station model. I feel like I already read that. I think I did. I've now read it twice, just in case anybody was needing that. Are there any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. That carries. Thank you, Chief Morrell. We look forward to seeing the next stage of this. Thank you. Mr. Cox, moving on to 10A.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of committee. My first report this morning provides an update on the proposed Muskoka Community Mural project. Committee will recall that they originally considered this matter in February of this year, where they endorsed the township's participation in the project in principle and directed staff to work with our counterparts from the District of Muskoka and their IAG group to propose alternative locations or potential locations for a community mural in Muskoka Lakes, and develop the concept and terms for a draft donation agreement. Since that time, staff have further worked with the district and the project artist to further develop the project. And as outlined in my report, currently staff are proposing a series of 3 smaller thematically linked murals to be painted inside the Port Carling Library. A high-level design concept of the proposed murals and the details of a potential donation agreement can also be found in the report. The project was presented to the Muskoka Lakes Library Board at their April 15th meeting, where the board passed a resolution supporting the proposed project, the concept, locations, and design of the mural. Staff are recommending that committee endorse the installation of the mural at the Port Carling Library and approve the design concept and the donation agreement that are contained within the report before you. I'd be happy to answer any questions that committee may have on this project at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Committee, I do have a resolution. So at this point, questions, and then we can move into the discussion. Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you. It's for you, to James. I guess, you know, at the end of the day, I guess if I had a concern, and I'm certainly going to support this, but if I had a concern, it's that this mural, given what it could accomplish, which would be to be seen by the traveling public and local residents, taxpayers, if it were external versus how many people will see it inside the library. One needs to be a dedicated library user, if you will. Can you share with us how difficult it was to establish that there couldn't be an outdoor venue versus indoor? Thank you.
Thank you.
So through you, Madam Chair, we looked at several locations, potential locations for the mural, and those are outlined in Appendix 1 of the report. We assessed every location that we could identify. We did a tour with the artist and with our staff from the district to identify potential locations across the township. Every potential location was assessed on 4 criteria: the suitability of the area for a mural, the visibility of that mural to the traveling public, to residents, as you mentioned, accessibility, if the location was accessible year round, whether it would be obscured during the winter months, things like that, And also maintenance concerns, as was noted in our discussion in February. Exterior murals do have higher maintenance costs associated with them. And so based on that, through the analysis of the potential locations, the Port Carling Library came across as being the most suitable. It's open year round. It is well used by both residents and both residents of all types and also visitors to the community. It's a community hub within Muskoka Lakes. And so based on those criteria, it was felt that it was the most appropriate and it best met the criteria that we were assessing these things on.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? We read, moved by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Bosenworth. Be it resolved that the Township of Muskoka Lakes approves the installation of a Muskoka community mural at the Port Carling Library, and that the Township of Muskoka Lakes endorses the design concept for this mural as outlined in Staff Report DSES-2025-017, and that the Mayor and Clerk be authorized to sign the public art donation agreement between the District Municipality of Muskoka and the Township of Muskoka Lakes, attached as Appendix 2 to Staff Report DSES-2025-017. Are there any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Cox. We look forward to seeing this new mural in your library. Thank you. Item 10B, Community Fund.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and members of committee. So my second report this morning concerns the proposed Muskoka Lakes Community Fund. Committee originally considered this matter in December of last year, where they directed staff to work with the Muskoka Community Foundation to develop the terms of a community fund that would work in conjunction with the township's existing municipal grants program and bring that matter back for further consideration by committee. Following discussions with the Muskoka Community Foundation, staff are now proposing the creation of a flow-through community fund to facilitate community fundraising for specific projects within Muskoka Lakes, as detailed in the report before you. Under this structure, when a specific project that is suitable for fundraising is identified, a stream within the community fund would be created. As donations for a project are received, the Muskoka Community Foundation, or MCF, will manage the fund, work with donors, provide charitable receipts, and generally handle the work of managing, administering, and growing the fund. Once the funding target is reached, the MCF will disperse the funds back to the township in order for the project to be implemented. This is a similar structure to what is currently being implemented in the town of Huntsville in conjunction with the foundation as well. The report details some of the advantages of this arrangement, including the delegation of administrative responsibility for donor tracking, reporting, and issuing of charitable receipts to a dedicated third-party body that can handle that. The MCF is also better positioned to pool, invest, and grow the funds under its management. Community groups who are pursuing particular projects within the community will also benefit from the ability to work with an organization that specializes in community philanthropy and can help these projects progress. That concludes my remarks. I'd be happy to answer any questions that committee may have at this time. I believe Linda Caro from the Muskoka Community Foundation is joining us remotely. Yes, here we are. If the committee has any questions that are better suited to be answered by the foundation directly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I do have a resolution, but I'm going to ask for questions. Councillor Kent. Oh, your mic, please. Mayor Kent.
Can you explain, could you give me a couple of examples where we might use this? Would this be for a Windermere playground or a new arena? Or would this be for, a 3 beds for, Andy's house or something? I'm trying to understand. And second, am I understanding that the existing municipal grants program, it's at the end of your report, will stay run the way it's being run and won't be integrated in any way with this?
Okay.
Through you, Madam Chair. To your second question first, yes, that is correct. We're not proposing any changes to the municipal grants program. As a result of this, that will continue to operate as it does right now. With regard to your first question, the example that you provided of the Windermere Playground, I think is an excellent example of a project that could potentially benefit from this arrangement, because that is a project where there will be contribution from the township. The township will ultimately be the one who is actually implementing or constructing the project. But there's also a substantial component that is to be fundraised from the community, will be solicited from donations from the community. And so if there was if a project like that had a stream created within a community fund, there would be greater opportunity for the foundation to work with donors to help the community volunteers organize some of their efforts in terms of communications and just generally manage the fund more effectively so that they can reach their target appropriately.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I see Councillor Roberts, Councillor Zavitz, Councillor Bosenworth.
Thank you. Through you to James. Windermere was a good example. That's the one I thought of. But if the Windermere community didn't want to use this process and wanted to go on their own, could they still do it?
Through you, Madam Chair. Certainly there is nothing that is being proposed that would obligate the township or the community to work through the community fund. Certainly it's the opinion of staff that there are advantages to doing so. But at the same time, simply because the structure is created, it would not preclude any other community-led efforts for community improvements or things like that.
Okay, I have two other questions, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Okay, I've been involved with many little projects in the Milford Bay community area, from the exercise equipment to playground equipment to the building of gazebos. And a lot of that work was based on monies that the community had, work with the contractor or volunteers. And in the case of the gazebo, it was totally done by local contractors and wanted nothing. So those projects can still proceed, I believe, from my previous one. The second one is I'm supportive of this because it looks like a more opportunity to get for constituents or for donors to have a formal process to donate money. But is there an off-ramp for this? Like if we try it for a year, 2 years, or what is our commitment to the process? And what is the money that we have to put in our seed for this this to go on, to move forward?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cox.
So through you, Madam Chair, I think to the councillor's point, I think that looking at this proposed structure as an additional tool that is available for community projects if it is appropriate to do so, I think that is probably the best way of looking at this. Certainly, the creation of a community fund does not create any obligation from the point of view of the township or the public to use that fund. So if the structure is created, that would create an opportunity for us to therefore create specific project streams if there isn't a project identified that would benefit from that structure. If the township doesn't have any projects that are appropriate to use this fund at any given time, the structure would be there. The township's certainly not obligated to contribute any seed money. It's intended that this would be solely as a way of managing community donations. So the structure can be put in place. If there are no streams operating through that structure, then it would continue to exist and it can be activated at any point that we seems necessary to do so.
Thank you. Councillor Zavitz and then Councillor Bosenworth.
Thank you, and through you to James. So I was relieved to read the existing municipal grants program was going to stay separate. Great. I guess my question to you would be, I'm not the greatest fan of the township getting into new businesses, to be quite honest. And, I think we maybe should stick to our knitting. But if you are saying, I guess, are you saying that with this, can the township generate receipts to the people that donate so that there's more value added, if you will, and that there's more incentive for people to donate to a fund to raise money? Because other than that, and like sidebar, for all these years that I've been sitting here, you know, I think it's maybe once, maybe twice, that someone's come forward with a rather benevolent amount of money that then was able to be used for a particular event or structure or whatever. Is that what you see happening here, where this would be a mechanism where people could donate larger sums of money that they would get tax receipts for, therefore realize a benefit?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cox?
Through you, Madam Chair. So my understanding, and I'll look at Director Donaldson to correct me if I am mistaken in this, is that if someone wished to make a charitable contribution to a project that the township is undertaking, at present, the township can issue a charitable tax receipt to them for that donation. I would suggest that one of the benefits of working with the Muskoka Community Foundation, and I'll perhaps look to Ms. DeCaro to speak to how they work with donors in the community. But I do think one of the benefits is that I would suggest that if an individual is looking at making a donation to their community, that there would probably be a higher comfort level in working with a foundation that has experience with community philanthropy, that can work with particular donors to understand their goals and to ensure that that fund is invested and grown in a way that is appropriate, that would benefit the community in that way. And that's not the expertise of the township. That's not our main mandate here. So I think that, again, this should be looked at as perhaps another tool that we have in order to implement community projects.
Thank you. Councillor Bosemuth, Councillor Kent, Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, and through you, just to be clear, does the recipient or donee, as you call them, have to be a charitable status?
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. So as was discussed in our previous report and in this one, disbursements from the fund can only be made to qualified donees as defined by the Income Tax Act. So that would be an organization that has charitable status. I will note that as the fund is envisioned right now, the only entity that would receive disbursements from the fund would be the township, because we're envisioning that this fund would be used to facilitate donations and fundraising towards specific projects, such as the Windermere Playground or some other capital project in the future that has some significant community element. The foundation would handle the donations and the fundraising and generating that money from the fund. And once the target is reached, it would be dispersed to a township and we would use it to implement the project as planned.
Okay, thank
So
you.
just to be clear, the ultimate recipient in this example is the Windermere Playground, which does not have charitable status, presumably, because it's quite difficult to get. And this, they've got a temporary organization to raise money. So the money comes into the foundation. The foundation gives it to the township, who issues the charitable receipt, and then gives the money to the organization to build the playground.
Okay, Mr. Cox.
Well, through you, Madam Chair. So in that specific example, my understanding is certainly is the township that would be constructing the playground and doing the capital work and doing all that. So it would be the foundation that issues the charitable receipts to anyone who donates to the fund. And then once the fund reaches the target level to actually move ahead with installing the playground, for example, the money would be dispersed to a township and then we would use it to actually move ahead.
Thank you.
So who issues the receipt in that case?
Through you, Madam Chair, my understanding is that it's the foundation that would issue the receipt back to the donor.
So, okay. Councillor Bosemuth, last question.
Last question. However, they're not allowed to give receipts to non-charitable organizations.
Okay.
Through you, Madam Chair, they are able to issue receipts to
to anyone who donates, is my understanding.
So the clarity on this right now, though, is that these projects are focused on township related, I'm going to call them now infrastructure like
Yes,
type
that is correct.
projects. And so it's a way to facilitate fundraising from a community effort to be able to offset, I will call it the tax burden. Is that correct? And so that administratively, it takes the burden of us managing that. And there's a whole host of other benefits then.
Yes, I would say your assessment's correct.
Okay. Councillor Kent, Mayor Kelly. These are questions. I haven't even read the questions.
I would suggest, based upon Councillor Bosmanwork's comments, that we just make sure that that's a very important benefit. So we get a tax opinion, or you make sure that they've gotten a tax opinion that says that our donors, people from Windermere who want to donate, would be able to, in this case, get their tax receipt. Otherwise, there's no big benefit to anybody. Number two, the fees involved. This is where I sort of, it made me uncomfortable. I assume there's no standby fees for making this arrangement with the organization, and the fees would only be incurred if we actually have a project that we're going to finance. Because I don't really see what any other, I mean, when we have a project, we could set this up and go do it. As long as, and I guess you're suggesting we set it up in advance, but I want to make sure there's nothing that we're paying out of pocket for a service that we don't necessarily need right now.
Okay, Mr. Cox.
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, in terms of the administrative fee that's associated with that, that is incurred from the management of any funds that are into the account. So at this point, if we're simply setting up the structure, there would not be an obligation on the part of the township to that. In terms of the issuance of the tax receipts, the foundation has a very robust set of policies around that has been rolled out in other communities. So I think staff have confidence that the arrangement would work with respect to that.
Okay, because I mean, from a cost standpoint, unless we're getting that benefit and the administrative fees are halted, there's no benefit for us, you know. I guess it's the administrative fees would cover our staff time if we decided to set up a fund, and the benefit that we can't issue tax receipts and they can.
Okay. Questions, Mayor Kelly?
Thank you. I may venture beyond questions and into answers.
Would you like me to read the resolution?
Yeah, if you wouldn't
Okay,
mind,
and
thank
then,
you.
yes, moved by Mayor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Kent. Be it resolved that the Township of Muskoka Lakes approves the creation of a Muskoka Lakes Community Fund as per the terms outlined in Appendix 1 of Staff Report DSES-2025-018, and that staff be directed to work with the Muskoka Community Foundation to identify potential project streams and report back at a later date. Mayor Kelly.
Thank you, and through you. Quick editorial here. We're in a really unique situation in the Township of Muskoka Lakes. A number of our residents, many of our residents are fortunately in a situation financially where they can afford to make substantial donations to support projects that happen here in the township. And I can throw out one small example, and I don't know the actual sum, but the library that was built with donor money was a substantial sum donated. But for the most part, we don't get a lot of donations here because there's no active encouragement of that sort of behavior. We're really good at the involuntary donations called tax collection. But we're not so good at the subtle art of getting people to understand the value of making contributions to grow the community, to grow the health and wellness here, to grow activity here. Notwithstanding the fact that there is a large number, not only of wealthy residents, but that they have a real passion for this place. I can tell you from firsthand knowledge, many, I know firsthand of well over a dozen examples where residents of this township are making donations to support projects in Bracebridge, to support sort of foundation type scientific research at watershed related businesses or enterprises that are also headquartered in Bracebridge. But we've never really made it a practice to try to encourage this sort of behavior here. We have some going on right now. I think the Windermere example of stepping up to try to help fund their playground is a great example. So what I see here is a really natural next step. We will stick to building what we build and taxing what we need to tax. And we will encourage the use of experts in recruiting support, recruiting donation. Some of it is, literally in the moment. Some of it is planned donation, perhaps not in tested, but through a will. Leave us something through a will. This is the vehicle, the only vehicle that we have available to us to tap into that kind of goodwill and good support for this community and the opportunity to make a meaningful donation. And so I'm 100% in support of it. The technical side of it, and I'm not going to, I think I understand this only because I co-chair a charitable organization based in Bracebridge. And so I've been through the rules 100 times, but I mean, this isn't a fly-by-night operation. This is a well-established approach to raising funding for projects in specific municipalities through the benevolence of the people who actually live here. And so I support it.
Okay. I wasn't clear on that. If you were, I'm just teasing. Okay. Councillor Zabit.
Thank you. And through you, to the mayor's points, I guess fast forward then to the marketing and communications of this. I think as the mayor has said, one of the things that could be vital here is the fact that we have a ready base of people that would be willing to contribute to this, but if they don't know it exists, I guess I would say to you, James, have you had discussions with these fine folks about the marketing and communication of this vehicle once passed, were it to be so, that people would then be aware of this on an ongoing basis? Because that's one of the things that we're not that great at. We tell them once or twice, but we don't continually reference it. So I'm wondering what those efforts are in a marketing and communication side.
Okay, thank you.
So through you, Madam Chair. So communication between the foundation and the township and the public is going to be key to making this entire structure work, to your point exactly. Certainly in discussions with the foundation, they have indicated that in other municipalities where they have brought in similar programs, ongoing communication between the foundation and township staff about what the goals of the fund are, what needs to be done in order to ensure public awareness. What are the key messages? How do we get the word out? What communities are we targeting? All of that is essentially key to making this work. So it is envisioned that on an ongoing basis, if this fund is set up, there would be ongoing contact between township staff, myself, our new communications advisor when that person comes on board, and the foundation in order to ensure that we're being effective in getting the word out. Certainly, from my experience with similar programs in other communities that I've worked in, it will certainly take a bit of time in order to establish the fund in the community. And I think that finding good projects, as is recommended in this report, going through that process to identify good projects, finding a good demonstrative project that can really show the impact of how this fund would work is going to be really key. And once that first project is successfully implemented, future ones become easier because there's real results in the community that people can see.
Thank you. I think you just touched on my question, was how to identify these projects to start getting the understanding. So it's not a passive, we've got a framework and it's just or we have something real that people can put their eye to and say, yeah, that's something I could support. So leave it with your capable hands. Are there any other questions or comments, committee? Okay, seeing none. I have read the question. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That passes. Thank you very much, Mr. Cox. Thank you, Ms. DeCaro, for joining us today. We appreciate your time and effort on this. We look forward to a successful fundraising relationship here. feel like you have one more. Just let me get back to
Correct.
your standing here still. So yes, item 10C, the Swift River. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of committee again. So my third and final report this morning concerns the public consultation process for the potential use of the Swift River Energy Limited Lease Reserve Fund. Committee will recall that they originally considered this issue in September of 2024, where they directed that any use of the fund would need to be preceded by public consultation and directed staff to develop a public consultation process to gather community input on potential uses for these funds. So as outlined in the report, staff are proposing a two-track consultation process, including a public survey, which is primarily intended to determine high-level preferences, general senses of what types of investments the community would like to see. To be complemented with a call for proposals, which would allow members of the public, community groups, or anyone who is with an interest in this to submit more detailed ideas on potential projects or investments that could be pursued. This feedback would be gathered and then reported back to committee for their consideration and any potential next steps or decisions that might need to be made if there is a project or investment that is identified through this process. So out of recognition of the community importance of this project, staff are seeking committee's endorsement of the proposed consultation process and the drafts of the survey and call for proposals that are included in the report, and would certainly welcome any feedback that committee may have about this process. That concludes my remarks, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that committee has about this at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Committee, are there any questions? Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you. It's for you. So yeah, overall, we do need to deal with this, no question. I do though, I think I have a process concern, and it is that we're going to go to the public, but the questions as indicated on the report, but at the same time, we're going to go to requests for proposal. Correct? Is those concurrent?
Okay, Councillor, or
If I might.
Mr. Cox? No, yeah, Mr. Cox.
Through you, Madam Chair, certainly as envisioned right now, those two elements would be run concurrently, although it is certainly possible that we could run them sequentially as well.
Okay.
Thank you, through you.
Councillor Zavitz.
Secondarily, yeah, I think that should happen personally. I think it's confusing to people to put a request for proposal out there. And you be careful what you put in the water. You might just get a big one. My point is that I think we need to hear from the public. This is very much a public involvement, a public process. And before I would think that a natural adjunct to hearing from the public would then be, as a result of what the public said, requests for proposals in this direction, that direction, or whatever. I think it's a pretty broad scope right now. And I certainly would beg committee's indulgence to perhaps do it sequentially and go to the public first. Thank you.
So because we moved into comments, what I will do is I'm going to read the resolution to allow for both questions and comments, because I want to make sure that others have a chance to comment. Moved by Councillor Nishikawa, seconded by Councillor Burry. Be it resolved that committee endorses the consultation plan to determine the potential use of the Swift River Energy Limited Lease Reserve Fund as outlined in staff report DSES-2025-020, and that staff be directed to proceed with the consultation plan and report back with its findings at a later date. So now I will open up for further questions or comments. Councillor Nishikawa.
I'm going to speak from my memory of this fund, and it was primarily about the businesses that suffered. And I have to go back to 95, 96, where sewer and water came into Bala and pretty much closed downtown, as well as a number of businesses went under, including the grocery store. And the impact generally was about the businesses in Bala that were challenged. They lost business, that type of thing. So I don't want to leave the impression that it's the general public that were affected. It was really primarily a lot of the businesses, and some didn't survive and that type of thing. And having said that, I'm a little bit concerned about the calls for proposal. Like I'm not even sure if we should even decide, like, we don't need another park in Ballot, for instance. Like, I'm just saying, but you know, what is it that, that could be? And I just don't know if just throwing it out there is going to be, I quite frankly, I have no idea what would come forward, but it does concern me that we're going to get stuff that has nothing to do with enhancing the businesses in Ballot.
Okay, Mr. Cox, do you have any comment on that, or?
Well, through you, Madam Chair, certainly I think that it would be possible if there is a concern about the call for proposals. Again, we could run the consultation sequentially. We could run a community survey to get high level input, bring that back to committee, and then if it's committee's decision at that point to move forward with a more specifically scoped consultation process, that certainly could be arranged. Part of the challenge in designing this consultation process is, to the councillor's point, when we go out to the public, we don't really have a clear sense of what we're going to get back. We could get a number of high-level preferences that align with projects that are already envisioned for the future in the community improvement plan, for example, or we could get something that we haven't even considered at the staff or at the committee level. So, you know, this consultation process was already essentially designed to take the public temperature, to find out what ideas are out there, and then bring that back for around this table for further discussion about what, if anything, we wish to pursue. But again, if there is a concern about putting out that public call, we can certainly stagger the consultation process to allow for that. We'll take a greater amount of time, but certainly we want to ensure that we get this right.
Okay, thank you. Yes, of course.
If I could make the suggestion that when we come back with a report or whatever it is, that adding this fund to the community improvement fund for specifically Bala, I don't want to miss that opportunity, that would be included in one of the options.
Okay, Mr. Cox, you heard that. Okay, thanks. Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, and through you. And I guess more of a general discussion than anything, you know, when with Jasmine Park, the township put a great new park in there. Everybody loved it. Isn't that a wonderful thing? And it was relatively close to this kind of money, I believe $150,000, $60,000, $70,000. You know, I wouldn't want to dismiss either that say Windsor Park, for example, couldn't benefit from that kind of activity. So, I mean, and that would be benevolent and you know, awarding, that's probably a bad word, acknowledging Bala in that. I'm wondering how we would ever acknowledge the businesses that suffered, and because they did, you know, without giving everybody checks. I mean, which isn't, I don't think, part of the focus here. So, you know, I do think that we have to go, we just have to do this. We have to go to the public, and, you know, we may well get many people saying, well, we just, you know, add a park here or there or that kind of thing. What are your thoughts on that? Have you heard anything that way?
So through you, Madam Chair. So we haven't had a lot of direct input from the public on the specific use of those funds. Frankly, I don't think there's a lot of public awareness of it right now. The feedback that we have had for what sort of community enhancements the public would like to see came through the consultation process that was done when the community improvement plan was developed. And I will draw committee's attention to some of the alternatives that are in the report, one of which is to look back at some of the alternatives that were proposed in the original staff report that was brought forward, one of which was use these funds to implement some of the projects that are contained within the community improvement plan. So it's entirely possible that we go out and we do this consultation, we hear from the public feedback that broadly aligns with what is included in the CIP, and the report back to committee after that brings back that feedback, shows how that aligns with what's in the CIP, and then recommends a way forward from there.
Okay, supplemental.
Supplemental, thank you, and through you to James. So I guess my only thought here would be on the CIP aspect of it is that I would hate to think that we would allocate this as part of a CIP and then have a business in Bala spend $27,000 on insulation. And that is part of this. I don't think that acknowledges just whatever all of this was. So, I mean, I don't know how we get to that focus, but I think there are as much what needs to be included. There seems to be some things that need to be excluded, if you will. You know, because traditionally we'll entertain somebody coming forward, they pay 25, we pay 25. But I mean, sprinkling that throughout the town, does that acknowledge this fund and and the burden of the folks in Bala for those years?
Through you, Madam Chair. Sorry, just for clarification, and my apologies for being imprecise. When I'm referring to projects through the community improvement plan, I'm referring to the public realm enhancement projects. So there is the private sector enhancement program, which you're speaking of, which invests in businesses, but there are also public projects. We've done the wayfinding signage, we've done enhancements to our parks, we've done downtown street furniture. Those would be the kind of things. And there are projects in the community improvement plan that have been identified for Bala, which currently do not have funding sources associated with them. It's the intent that we would pursue grant funding from higher levels, so we could revisit using the funds towards one of those projects. That's what I was trying to say.
Mayor Kelly?
Thank you, and through you. I may be the only one, but I'm struggling to understand new information to me today, but I've always had a difficult time understanding where this sum of money came from that originates with a 30-year-old decision to put water and sewer in Bala, and nobody bothered to write down what to do with the funding. So to think that we can go back and recreate some historical idea of where to compensate or where to put the money, I much prefer the approach I think that I'm hearing from Councillor Zabas, which is it's a kind of a fresh opportunity to put a stake in the ground, make a statement on behalf of the residents of Bala, not tied to the unfortunate circumstance of 30 years ago, but really tied to what do we want Bala to look like next? What do Bala need? What do they like? What do they want? And so I'm much more inclined to focus on this as a, you know, get a representative of the not representative group of people from Bala together, as many as we can fit in a room, and what do you do with this kind of money? It's a substantial sum of money. It can make a difference in lives in terms of you know, in terms of streetscape or in terms of parks or trails, something can put it to good use. I think break a little bit free of the origin of it, because again, I'm stumped on how this could have come about without anybody bothering to record what it was for. Or, you know, I know where it came from. I'm just not sure how we don't know what it was for.
Okay, thank you. I'm seeing a lot of hands up here, and I'm just trying to help with a path forward. We have a sum of money. We had a report. I was trying to, as you were discussing, go back into when this past report came to us. I think it was in September.
Yes.
With some recommendations from staff on initiatives that were identified in the CIP that were focused on Bala, that these monies could be earmarked towards. So there is some preliminary work done in that area. And I want to make sure I'm understanding, and just nod your head or tell me I'm off, that would include taking specific ideas then out to the community for public engagement to say, we received X amount of money because of the SRLE project. There are 4 projects that have been identified through our CI program that these funds could be put towards. We would like to hear from you, the public. Are there ones that you would prioritize out of that list? Is that how you would envision, if we went back to the September report, a public engagement process?
Well, yes, Madam Chair, that is one way we could go about it. The other option that would get at the same information in a slightly different path would be to proceed with the general survey as is before you in this report right now. Find out what the community's sort of high level preferences are without speaking about specific projects. Bring that information back, use that information about preferences to prioritize projects that are identified in the public realm elements of the CIP, and then bring back a recommendation to committee.
And that's what's before us today, because in September, we decided that our committee, it was a decision that we wanted to do the broader discussion. So you've come back with let's go back before we go with specifics. Let's talk at the higher level, what kind of areas of interest?
Yes.
And that's what's ahead in front of us right now.
Committee's direction in
Okay.
December was to proceed with public consultation. If that public consultation is to be specifically focused through the projects that are within the CIP, I would suggest that the survey, that the process that's in front of you would need to be revised before it could go forward.
Okay, so committee, I've been hearing some interest and some interest that we may want to focus the survey on CIP initiatives. Councillor Zavitz, you had your hand up.
Thank you. Through you. I think just for clarification for the mayor, this has everything to do with the SREL, the hydro plant, and nothing to do with 30 years ago. It was everything to do with 2018. And so in that regard, the township and the mayor and council at that time, leased the lands to Swift River, or there probably wouldn't be a hydro plant there today. And so given that, there was a lot of scope around the angst of all of that. And that was when the next mayor then said, those monies that were garnered from the leases will somehow be spent on Bala at some point in time in the future in recognition of, I would only use the words pain and suffering, but, it was a long time. Businesses got hurt, people were inconvenienced, traffic, et cetera, for that length of time. And so that's really what this is. So I think really what we should be doing, to your earlier point, Chair, is to create a pathwork for the public right now. Just slow it down for the public to give us comment and not frame it towards CIP or this or that or the other thing. And let's see how organic it can be.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, it's $200,000, right?
So I think the resolution that I've read would identify that with the one exception. I just want to be sure if we need to change this resolution in any way. What I did hear is that we would rather stagger instead of doing it consecutively with the RFP. Do we need to change this, or is that just information now you have?
Through you, Madam Chair. I will perhaps look to my colleagues if I am incorrect about this. I don't believe we would need to change the resolution in that the report doesn't specify that these two elements were to be run concurrently. So I think staff can take the direction that we will run the survey, find general feedback, bring the information back to committee, and then if there is a desire to proceed with further consultation or to move ahead with one of the projects that are identified elsewhere, then we can have the discussion at that point.
Fantastic. So committee, I have read the resolution. I will now call the question. Are there all those in favor? Thank you. That carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Cox.
Thank you.
These things are exciting. It's amazing when we have money. We want to know how to spend it. There's a lot of thought that has to go into that. Okay, so we are now moving into our new business. And I'd like to bring us back to earlier today. We did hear a delegation. There was no ask from the hospice, so I don't think we have anything to discuss unless somebody wants to bring something up. Councillor Kent.
Yeah, it concerned me that we were gonna lose beds in Muskoka Lakes to Gravenhurst. And I was wondering if there's something we should be doing about that and why that would be happening. They would, if they're gonna have 10 beds to give out, 3 should go to Muskoka and 7 should go to Gravenhurst. So I don't understand that. That's all. And I was wondering if we should do something.
Yeah, okay. Mayor Kelly?
Thank you, and through you. And what concerned me about that is, if I understood correctly, we're losing them to some fairly new ALC beds that are being, I don't think they're constructed yet, but they're being, it's a conversion, I think, that's going on in Gravenhurst. So I think we need to look into that, especially given, if I understood correctly, the feedback that the cost of maintaining the beds here is about half of the cost of the ALC facility. Special care, yeah.
Oh, you're Mike, sorry.
unless there's a complaint in the way they're delivering. I thought they were delivering based on what I read and listened to very well, so.
So perhaps we need to understand, I saw your hand up, the path forward to what can we do? I think that's the question Councillor Kent was asking. Is there something that we need to do to support an important, I will call it, member of our community? And I think that I'm looking to the district councillors, perhaps Mayor Kelly, and I saw Councillor Nishikawa had her hand up. So maybe I'll start with Councillor Nishikawa and then I'll come back to you, Mayor Kelly.
So it's unfortunate that we heard us against them. One municipality against a municipality. It's not about that at all. There's a much bigger picture going on. So, you know, we have other hospice in Muskoka in general. So it all gets wrapped up together of who gets what. But also, as you recall, we had a presentation about the health hub that is happening in Gravenhurst. So it's tied into all of that as well. And honestly, I mean, while we can say, we can always send out a letter of support saying we support hospice gaining these 3 more beds, which would go to the province. But that's about, from my understanding, because there's a whole bunch of other stuff involved with this. So we can't just take out our little hospice and say, okay, because, and she had mentioned it as well, we're serving all of our hospice, all of those types of things that are government funded can bring people in from all other different locations in the province. So it's a different conversation than just about us versus Gravenhurst, for instance.
Okay, Mayor Kelly, did you want to add a comment?
Thank you. Not a comment so much as a possible answer to Councillor Kent. I mean, we could raise the issue at the next Health Services Committee meeting. Councillor Nishikawa is on it. But we could raise the question about whether or not there is, because my understanding is that it's not actually a hospice care facility. It's an ALC facility that MAC is supporting, building, doing something with in Gravenhurst, which presumably is not going to have the same approach to hospice care, nor be as cost sort of effective as leaving it leaving those 3 rooms occupied by MAC or by MAC's patients, if you will. Just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. So I think it's more questions than answers.
So just to add to that, in trying to build on what Councillor, we may want to also support these 3 extra ALC beds, but why is it either or? Like, do they see the value truthfully in these hospice beds, and financially they've painted a picture, never mind the quality of care, that there's huge value. So trying to understand the rationale behind, I guess, reducing, not to your point, just going to Gravenhurst, but why would you not also be funding these 3 beds when that seems to be delivering a service at a very cost-effective way? So, Councillor Burry?
And just to build on that, healthcare doesn't know geographical boundaries. So this is not an us or them, and people will seek healthcare wherever it is most appropriate. Certainly the cost effectiveness of a palliative care over ALC is, you know, it's about half. Alternate level of care is about 1/8 of what it costs to have an acute care bed. And the part that we haven't heard here is acute care beds being used for alternate level of care support, which we know MEC has had a significant problem with. And I'm not talking about a little problem. If 3 days is the average acute care stay in the province of Ontario, MEC has at least one site that's 44 days last year, which is really troublesome. So if we can start to get at the root causes of where the bottlenecks are and support all of our healthcare folks in getting the people in the right places at the right time, I think that's really effective. What we should be is really proud of what Andy's House has done for our community, and as an example for the rest of the province. You know, and that's just little township of Muskoka Lakes. So, but the issue is far bigger, and if MEC is doing something about trying to alleviate alternate level of care patients being in acute care beds, kudos to them. And however they do that, I think that's fantastic because it's very expensive to keep a person in a hospital bed.
Thank you. Moving on to item 12B. We had a delegation earlier today from the Muskoka Lakes Golf and Country Club. Do we have any questions or comments on that? Councillor Burry?
Thank you. Through you. The comment is, and I wasn't going to say this, but I heard the engineer push back that, it's a district road now, so we're going to have to look at it as a district road. And my difficulty, and I grew up in a house with an engineer, so I do understand the 64 shades of gray are sometimes difficult, and it's black or white. But I really think that for this road, for the Muskoka Lakes Golf and Country Club, it is going to be very intrusive if they have to build it to district standards, which is significantly larger than what we would need. And if we're looking at skirting around the golf course, I really want to make sure that the engineers think a little bit more outside the box, and it's a district road now, so we have to design it to be a district road. Well, maybe you don't, because that might not work. And designing a lesser road, because it does not fit the definition of a district road. It should not be a district road. But engineers are engineers, and I say that in the most positive ways. We all do things well, and that's terrific. But engineers, if they're told it's a district road and it has to be replaced as a district road, it's going to be twice as wide as it needs to be, and it's going to have ditches twice as big as it needs to be. It's going to be far more invasive than it needs to be. And what we're trying to do is solve a problem, not create 10 other problems. So I don't know how we get that message back. And I know Director Colucci's, I can't put words in your mouth, but we did have a conversation that you might see things in much the same way as I do. And that, let's make sure that the folks that are doing this design aren't just doing it by route, because that's the way it is.
Sorry, Councillor Roberts. My apologies. I didn't have my mic on. Councillor Roberts.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I want to go back to what the golf club is doing. They're going out to the public to present a solution and to get comments back. And I know when I reviewed the 2022 audio video, there was mixed feelings around the table that time, whether the township should be doing it or we were okay with them doing it. What I'm concerned with this is that the public will get the perception could get the perception that the township is in favor of this. I suggest that we need a letter from the township communicating our thoughts on the use of our property or the change of our property. Up front, Director Hammond or CAO Hammond listed out in that report the concerns with the cost going forward. The only district road that is in play right now is the one goes through the golf course. There's two other options. The one off Shamrock, and I'll say Robert Johnson Path, which has a couple of alternatives, and the one the other one would be the Shamrock, and a few options. Both of those are township's property. So anything that's been done in that and those pieces of property would have to come up to township standards. So I guess what I'm saying is I would like staff or this council to send a letter an open letter to the golf club listing our position, our thoughts, our concerns, but with what is being proposed. And I'd like comments on that from my peers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments, committee? And perhaps I can bring up, I was picking up on this at the end, and I was actually grateful that they came and presented because it was reminding me as to where they were in the process and the importance of public engagement. And also reminding me that we would be a member of the public in this consultation, quote unquote, like we would have the same opportunity, the township, the corporation, the township of Muskoka Lakes have an opportunity to provide public comment. So that's why when I went back and I was asking the questions, I've got this on my own screen here, but about the process, and they are in phase 2, which is what they would be taking out this summer, I'm assuming, to identify and assess alternative solutions that would require public consultation. So versus what would be required for us? I think what Councillor Roberts is bringing up is he would see that there's an interest in us putting forward our thoughts or our position. I think at this point, I don't think consideration, do we want to be quiet or do we want to make a statement? And then the second thing would be, what are the steps that we need to take in order to have an informed letter that's going out at this point in the process? And so I guess I need to ask staff to help us with this because this is, I'm not quite sure how to get us to a point of that type of a decision. As do we want to be quiet at phase 2 public consultation as the corporation of the township of Muskoka Lakes? Or B, if we want to make a comment, how do we make sure we're providing an informed comment? You think this does this? Well, this is wonderful. Staff have drafted a resolution for us to help us create a path forward. If it would be okay with committee, I will read this resolution to see if this would help shape a path forward to get us to that point. Moved by Councillor Burry, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Whereas committee received a delegation regarding the Muskoka Lakes Golf and Country Club proposed realignment of Ferndale Road through the Muskoka Lakes Golf and Country Club. Now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to work with the delegate and report back to committee with 1, potential comments on the 2 proposed options, realigning the road or realigning the golf course from the township to include in their public comment process. 2, potential comments on the options and responsibility of the road for the District of Muskoka's consideration. And 3, a comprehensive history of applications and council approvals on the property. That included some of the other comments that were brought up earlier today, of course. So Mayor Kelly.
Thank you. And through you, I like the approach. I just still wonder whether the timing is right. It's possible they could come back with a change to the road that runs through their own property and over which we would have very little input or not much to say. So to the extent that we don't know, which, and this is the point I was trying to make with when the delegate was online here, I don't see anything has changed in 3 years. And 3 years ago, it kind of looked like a smorgasbord of ideas, and it hasn't really narrowed itself down. It seems like it's impossible to comment on such a different array. We can help gather information perhaps, or be part of it, but it's entirely possible they come back and say, we're not going to make any change at all, in which case the effort that goes into commenting now until they've narrowed down the options, it seems to me, might just be a lot of time and energy on our part for very little return.
Thank you for that question. And I just want to make sure that I think how this was reading is that they're directed to work with the delegate and report back with potential comments. So it's essentially putting that burden. I shouldn't be putting words. This is how I'm interpreting this, but maybe CAO Pink, you can add that this isn't about forcing staff to come back with a staff report if there's nothing to report on or do all sorts of due diligence. It still puts the responsibility on the applicant to work with staff in the event that we needed to make a comment. I don't know. Help us. Committee, if you could just give me 1 moment so I can speak to CAO Pink and our clerk just to Okay, committee, to satisfy that, I really listened to, Mayor Kelly's comments, and I know we were really hesitant 3 years ago as well of having any staff to, like, devoted, committed staff time towards something, when truly this is on them. But we want to make sure that we're prepared if necessary, and so those would be words that would be added to this to say, now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to work with the delegate and report back to committee as necessary with potential comments. So staff is feeling that with the addition of those words, it wouldn't put the burden on them to come back. So I'm going to, if Mayor Kelly can comment, just because I think that was a response to his, and then Councillor Zavitz.
Just a quick follow-up. Does the delegate have any responsibility to work with us? We've imposed an obligation on our part to work with them, but I don't know that they're going to be lined up at the door to, I mean, I just don't know. We've essentially delegated responsibility for this phase to them. So I don't know what role we have or obligation they have to sit with us and.
Okay. So CAO Pink, did you want to add?
I think you're correct. They might not be obligated to work with us. However, I think it would serve their benefit to work with us. I think with that said, ultimately, the direction is that staff come back with a report on potential comments from the municipality. So it's not contingent, I would say, on the applicant necessarily having to work with us. I think what we've heard or seen so far, staff, I believe, should be able to come back with potential comments on the municipality's position. I think the other two things we've heard is the previous comments, fairly easy to come back with a history of previous applications. And I think we've heard a few committee members comment that the road should be delegated from the district to the township. So I think we should be able to formulate those comments should they choose not to be overly cooperative with us. But I think we've had a cooperative relationship so far, and I don't see why they wouldn't continue that.
Okay, Councillor Zavitz.
Thank you, through you. So I'm certainly aligned with the mayor and also what David has just said, where, you know, reading the crystal ball, we've sit here for over these years. When they go to the public with a consult, it'll be the members of the golf club will say, yeah, let's move the road. People on Shamrock, et cetera, the neighbors, the people that are taxpayers there won't probably want any real road activity. I'm wondering why we would, at this stage, comment at all. I mean, thanks for the delegation. They came forward, but at this point in time, it's not our road. And what are they really asking us is what the mayor said. And I totally agree. I mean, this is answering a question that nobody asked. They haven't asked the question. He said it. What is the question? The question is, hey, township, are you good with this? Will you help us when we go to the district? Well, I think to Councillor Burry's point, we can, as David has said, we can suggest that we should download that road or we should take that road over. Then I guess then we could become a participant and we could help and less standards for the road, et cetera, et cetera. But I think personally, I don't think we need a resolution at all.
Thank you. Okay, so Councillor Burry, just so, because we have people online as well.
I echo Councillor
Okay.
Zavitz's. I don't think we need a resolution here. It's up to them to work with us.
Okay. And then Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. 2 points. I think we do need a resolution because the community is going to assume that we're good with this. And they'll be coming to their councillors saying, well, how dare you think about, changing our Shamrock Road or whatever. The point I'd like just to clarify with that one comment that his worship made about we have delegated this to the Golf and Country Club to do the public, that's what I took from the comments, the public sessions. I don't think we've delegated anything. We've just stayed silent. So that was my thoughts. I guess we're okay, Chair.
Thank you. I was just getting some consultation here from our clerk. So I'm going to ask Director Peroshi to, because I've read a resolution, she's going to help us understand path forward here. So she's helping me at this point.
Thank you, through you. So the resolution that is before you has been read, has been put on the floor. If the mover and seconder concurred, it could be withdrawn if you did not want to pass a resolution at this time. What this resolution is essentially doing is delegating this matter to staff to provide comments and for staff to work with the applicant. Should a no resolution be passed, if this matter were to come forward at a later date, it would have to come back to this table. So just to note that as well. So if you don't want a resolution at this time, the mover and seconder would have to concur and it can be withdrawn, or you can vote on the matter, either or.
How do we get to lunch?
Okay, so it was moved by Councillor Burry and seconded by Councillor Roberts. Councillor Zavitz?
I'd certainly move that we do not need a resolution if there was a seconder to that.
So I'm hearing from one of the movers that you're not interested in having a resolution either, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm interested in a path forward. I know our staff are going to do the excellent job they always do. So I'm not really concerned. If a resolution helps staff, then I'm happy to proceed with it because this is it's a nothing resolution.
So let me get clarity from RCA. Would this help staff in the event the delegate comes back?
I think what it does in my mind is just allows the municipality to be more prepared should we be asked to provide comments on the proposal. We'll have done the legwork beforehand, but as I think you've noted, that may not come to fruition or we may not need to. Perhaps might look to Director Clucci if perhaps some clarification on the EA process and our ability to engage in that at a later time. Might clarify whether we need to do this at this time or not.
Okay, Director Clucci.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. So, there will be opportunity at a later date to comment because obviously, this process will be developing, some preferred solutions, right? So they're not even there yet because there's a lot of things to look at, land acquisition and, location. And, they're still not even deciding whether they're going to realign the golf course or realign the road. So, all these things have to be looked at through this consultation process. So, it'll be later this summer and they probably will come forward with some more defined solutions. And then at that time we can comment. So if they do pick, a road alignment that's on an unopened road allowance, then, we will be able to comment at that time. And I think, the staff will stay in touch with both the district and the consultant during the process. So if they need any background from us, then we can provide that at that time. So it should be fine.
Okay, so I think we're hearing from staff that we don't need a resolution based upon, I think, how Director Carlucci just has laid that.
So I'm happy to withdraw.
You're happy to withdraw? Okay, so Councillor Roberts, you're happy to withdraw with having heard those final comments? Okay, so now what do I do? Wow, that was fun. Thank you. That was easy. Can we do that more often? Okay, let's move on to the district updates. Are there any comments? Okay, Councillor Nishikawa, Mayor Kelly.
Mostly I wanted to bring forward, if people were to pay attention to the planning portion of district meetings, there was a very interesting conversation came forward about resorts. And a presentation from Bob List, those that remember him from around the table in the past, but it's interesting to listen to.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Any other, Mayor Kelly, my apologies.
I didn't.
Oh, you looked very excited. Okay. Okay. Are there any other questions or comments from committee for district councilors? Seeing none. Any community events? Seeing none. Mayor Kelly.
Oh, thank you. And I'm assuming you're on number 13, correspondence.
Yes.
I received something last night and I just want to put it out there. We're all exceedingly proud of our staff and through the entire organization, but it's rare that you get feedback from another municipality. But last night I received an email from Rick Maloney, Mayor Maloney of Bracebridge. Yesterday there was a fire grass fire, I guess, in Bracebridge. Small one, 50 by 50 feet, but it soon spread. It took too much of their resources to try to put it out. So they called the Muskoka Lakes Fire Department, and I think they also engaged Huntsville or Lake of Bays. But Muskoka Lakes stepped up and covered one of their main stations, station number 1, as backup because the entire group of firefighters with the Bracebridge station number 1 were off fighting this grass fire. And ultimately, I guess the fire took over many acres of land, and we also put resources on putting that out. Just a very complimentary letter from Mayor Maloney. Mayor Maloney said the success in extinguishing this potentially disastrous fire was a team effort. We appreciate the professional collaboration between our respective fire services and value the cooperation and support between our respective municipalities. Please extend my personal thanks to your departments, and I would echo that. Please extend our thanks to your department. Chief Morrell, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments? I have a resolution moved by Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Roberts. Be it resolved that this meeting adjourn at 12:11 p.m. and that the next regular meeting of the General Finance Committee will be held on Wednesday, June 10th, 2025 at 9 a.m. or at the call of the chair electronically for the Council Chambers Municipal Office in Port Carling, Ontario. All those in favor? That carries. Thank you very much. Mayor Kelly will be back at 1 or
I'd say 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.